The Majority Report with Sam Seder, where every day's Casual Friday. That means Monday is Casual Monday, Tuesday, Casual Tuesday, Wednesday, Casual Hump Day, Thursday, Casual Thurs, that's what we call it, and Friday, Casual Shabbat. The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
It is Friday, March 24th, 2023. My name is Sam Seder. This is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, it's Casual Friday, folks. We're going to open up the lines. All phone calls today. Well, we're going to do other stuff too, but we're going to take your phone calls in the first hour. Then Andy Kindler will join us to talk about the era in which Dennis Miller was such an icon that they made an action figure out of him. Also on the program today, U.S. launches airstrikes on Syria in retaliation for the killing of a U.S. mercenary. The New York Trump grand jury on break, it seems, until Monday. Brief respite. Ray Epps, remember that dude? He was at the center of a January 6th conspiracy, a supposed FBI provocateur. Well, he's getting ready to sue Fox and Tucker Carlson for defamation, saying that he was a provocateur as opposed to an insurrectionist. Now, strike in France postpones King Charles's visit. I headline that only because I can't believe I said King Charles. 16 Montanan youth, or I should say the trial of 16 Montanan youth who are suing the state for its support of fossil fuels, coming just days after President of the United States okays the Willow Project. Meanwhile, the LA school strike ends, a deal struck but unannounced. New York State primed to ban gas and fossil fuel appliances in all new buildings. Bibi vows to proceed with his attack on judicial independence in Israel. Trump judges on the Fifth Circuit block a vax mandate for federal workers. New report, book banning attempts have doubled, or did double, in 2022.
Free speech.
A Florida principal fired for not warning the parents of 6th graders that their kids will see a picture, the statue of David. TikTok hearings may be a prelude to a ban as of yesterday, and a new study. Most trans adults happy they transitioned. All this and more on today's Majority Report. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It is a Casual Friday. Emma Vigland is here for Casual Friday. I've just opened up the phone lines. Just want to make sure. I got to call in too.
Yeah.
Here you go. Let's see. That noise you heard means the phone lines are open. Matt
646-257-3920. Yes. Call that number. Yeah.
Okay. All right. If you want to be that way, we could do that as well. We could give the old phone numbers out. Mm-hmm. That's not a bad idea. Should tell you that Matt is out today. I want everybody to calm down. He is possibly sitting on a grand jury. Now, no relation, as far as we know, to what's going on with Trump. But just wanted to give you a heads up. Bradley's flying solo today, doing a great job. And will probably be reduced to tears by the end of this. particularly if it's if
Matt's on the grand jury for like weeks. A little concerned. I mean,
well done, very
Good
well
job.
done.
Less concerned now because that was so good. There we go.
Yeah, well done.
Yeah.
Bradley's flexing, as the kids say.
Bradley's stepping up in the clutch, right? Like this is a championship on the line.
Donald Trump sort of just wriggling around, waiting to find out whether he's going to get a chance to do a perp walk or not. Here is Donald Trump on Truth Social. Well, I mean, this is, I guess, an existential question that he has here. I mean, it is.
Sounds like his personal prayer to God here.
Yeah, exactly. Here, let's take a look at this.
You want me to read this?
Yeah, no, I got it.
Okay.
What kind of I'm sorry. What kind of person can charge another person, in this case, a former president of the United States who got more votes than any sitting president in history? Wait, what? Oh, well, I guess that's possibly true. He lost, incidentally.
Right. I think that is actually technically true.
It is technically true.
Yeah. But the other guy got more votes.
Still got more. Whatever. That's a detail. And leading candidate by far for the Republican nomination with a crime. This is, folks, listen, I am the last person to complain about grammar, but this is quite a run-on sentence. What kind of person can charge another person, comma, in this case, a former president of the United States, comma, who got more votes than any sitting president in history, comma, and leading candidate, friends by far, exclamation point, for the Republican Party nomination, comma, with a crime, comma, when it's known by all that no crime has been committed, comma, and ampersand, also known that a potential death and ampersand destruction in such a false charge could be catastrophic for our country, question mark. Whew. Why and who would do such a thing?
Why and who?
Only a degenerate psychopath that truly hates the USA.
Well.
Truly spelled wrong, also, by the way.
Looking in the mirror, right there.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of issues that we could take with the syntax and the grammar and the
just general psychotic nature of it.
But I got to be fair, on Twitter, I will also do some run-on sentences. He seems to be taking this well. I mean, I think I think what's clear is that on some level, he predicted Tuesday. It's a way for him to get out in front and define it and get rid of the shock, or also to make it more of a story that is focused on him, in the run up to the charges. Here is Mike Pence. Now, Pence's poll numbers are atrocious.
Yeah,
it seems like no one in the Republican Party likes him. I mean, nobody outside of this. This should not come as a surprise. He was an incredibly unpopular governor in Indiana when Donald Trump picked him. I think he had something like 41% approval rating tops. And his career was effectively over.
Yeah.
And now it's going to be effectively over again. But here he is.
He just screams repressed theocrat who you would never want to be in a room alone with. Like, I don't know how that works out for you politically.
Even the theocrats think they can do better.
Right, exactly.
Here is Mike Pence on Sean Hannity's program.
Let me ask you this question first, because it's news of the day.
Yeah.
And this has to do with Alvin Bragg and the New York DA and what they're trying to do to President Trump. And you called it, quote, it feels like a politically motivated or politically charged prosecution here. What did you mean by that?
Well, look, I think what we're witnessing is what I call the criminalization of politics. I mean, the truth is, let me stipulate, no one's above the law, but no one is below the law. And the American people are tired of a two-tiered justice system in this country. I believe it. I mean, we saw the politicization of the Justice Department during the Trump-Pence years. We saw FBI agents falsifying documents to pursue the Russia hoax. Then we saw the whole Zelensky phone call business, and it just hasn't stopped. And here you have, here in New York City, this Manhattan DA who literally campaigned on going after one American. You have an attorney general in this state that campaigned going after one American. And let me say, I know nothing about the allegations. I'm not here to defend them, and I know that President Trump can defend himself. But the
Pause it for
American
1 second.
people are.
How do you claim that this is a completely politically motivated prosecution when you know nothing about the allegations? I mean, it's not like, some of these allegations aren't available. It's not like one person already went to jail because of these allegations. I mean, one person was convicted and went to jail. They had a co-conspirator involved in this. The federal government at the time, for whatever reason, during the Trump years, did not go after the co-conspirator.
Well, I thought they were so politicized. I thought we were in a two-tiered justice system now where some people are above and below the law. Hadn't heard that one before.
One of the I think refrains that everybody, and one of the criticisms of our justice system that I think everyone can accept is, of course, this notion that we have a two-tiered system. There is justice for everybody in the 99.5% of the population, but millionaires and billionaires and politicians, they're the only one who are subject to our laws in this country. It's really it's a
disgrace.
It's a disgrace. But let's hear him continue. I don't know anything about these charges. I don't read the papers because I'm so busy doing what? What else is he doing?
Yeah, media appearances and reading the Bible.
After one American. And let me say, I know nothing about the allegations. I'm not here to defend them, and I know that President Trump can defend himself. But the American people are tired of politics playing a role in justice, and I think tens of millions of Americans look at what's happening in the Manhattan DA's office and say, enough is enough. We've got to end this political prosecution of the president and the politics that's playing a role in our justice system around the country.
Jim Jordan.
Yes. What a great American. There it is. The theocrat who is there complaining about Donald Trump's. I mean, he is just trying to sort of like coast in the wake of Trumpiness, I guess. And they're all. It's quite clear that for a guy like Pence, his strategy is hope that Trump has a heart attack on the golf course, and maybe then he'll have a chance to run in the primary.
Yeah. It's just incredible that Trump was essentially trying to at least passively get him to be harmed or teach him a lesson by doing nothing, as the protesters that he egged on screamed, "Hang Mike Pence," and were going after him. And yet we're still in this spot where the guy that, like, I don't know, semi-tried to kill you, you're still defending on TV. That says everything you need to know about, like, the Republican Party. And one more thing about Trump, too. I know
Mike Pence could be a euphemism. So I just,
think about it.
You hang pictures you like.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. So.
Right. People you love, even. But, like, why Trump... It's so amazing after all these years. Now he was actually the president of the United States. He still sees everything through a public relations lens. Like, he is a PR guy through and through because he either doesn't want to get arrested and is begging his supporters to essentially, protest and freak out Alvin Bragg and intimidate them. But if he does, he wants that perp walk because then he can have those images everywhere, like political prosecution, witch hunt. He's a PR guy through and through after all of this time. It's amazing.
As long as they spell your name correctly, it's the only thing that's important. All right, we're going to open up the phone lines. Get to that in a moment. First, a couple of words from our sponsors. The first one, our favorite sponsor here at the Majority Report. sunsetlakesebede.com. This thing's a little bit faded. You got to use the coupon code Left is Best. Will get you 20% off Sunset Lake Sebede, all of their products. They have tinctures. I took a trip yesterday to Florida, 23 hours. I had to get some sleep. I brought down my tinctures, small enough to go on the plane, incidentally. And the one with melatonin got me a great night's sleep. Also, I brought down some gummies with a little bit of CBD and THC, just in case I thought I was going to have a party last night in the Marriott Hotel. Did not. But nevertheless, they have gummies with THC, with melatonin, with trace amounts of THC, with melatonin. They have multiple flavors of the tinctures and strengths of the tinctures. They have smokables. They have keef. It helps with the, what do they call that effect? The, gosh, I can't remember what the effect is, but Matt knows what it is.
The feeling.
Yes, it does stuff. There's a specific word for it now because, Matt knows what it is. But they also have fudge. They have coffee, great coffee that's embedded with CBD, a great weekend blend if you want to take the edge off that caffeine. All great products, all with an incredible amount of integrity. That's hugely important because CBD can go in a lot of different directions, folks. This is all third-party tested. They use integrated pest management, so there's no pesticides or herbicides in what they grow. They use regenerative farming practices so that they protect the land. They have great business practices, $20 minimum wage, mostly employee-owned company, and they are movement partners. That's why I love these guys so much. They have contributed thousands of dollars to strike funds, to food pantries, to refugee resettlement, to give directly. I mean, all sorts of different things. They're great partners, and they're fans of the show. Left is Best was their idea as a coupon code. So check it out. sunsetlakesebede.com. Head over there, get 20% off. Right now, you can get on all their products with Left is Best coupon code. Also, today's program sponsored by Aura. What does Aura do? The CBD helps me sleep at night, but so does an Aura in some ways too, because I am a little bit hyper uptight about having my identity protected online, but there's every reason to be nervous about that. It is a huge pain to have your identity stolen. And Aura is an easy-use app that makes sure that that gives you everything you need to stay safe online. It protects you from scammers and hackers stealing your identity or trading it, really. If they find your email or your passwords or your social security numbers being traded in the so-called dark web, they will send you an alert fast. They also require send automatic takedown notices on websites that publish your public information. And you need to do that on a regular basis. And Aura does it all for you. It cuts down on robocalls, cuts down on creeps finding out your public info. Aura gives you near real-time alerts if somebody's trying to open up a bank account or a credit card in your name. I got a notice from them when I opened up one for my daughter under my auspices. I knew it was legit, but it really actually made me feel very secure, frankly, that they were telling me this. They got a VPN that allows you to stay anonymous online by keeping your browsing history and your personal information safe and encrypted. They can protect your devices from viruses, malware, spyware, so bad guys don't break in. They also give you the chance to manage what your kids do with their devices. They can set screen time limits. They can restrict to specific apps, set focus time to ensure your child's doing their homework instead of watching weird God knows the things they watch on YouTube. I mean, I know the things they watch on YouTube, and I don't get it, but I'm old. They have a password manager that lets you store and access your online passwords securely and conveniently. And now you may have an app that does one of these or two of these things, but now you can have an app that does all 7. Just one. Let Aura do the hard work of keeping you safe online. If you sign up right now, Aura is going to give you 2 weeks free with my link. When you put your email in during that 2-week trial, you're going to find out how many different websites have compromised your email and your password and maybe other information. So check it out right now. AURA, aura.com/majority. Start your free trial. Of course, it will be linked in the podcast and YouTube descriptions as always. Let's go to a phone call on this Open Lines Friday.
Very fun.
Calling from an 812 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, this is John. I'm calling from Indiana.
John from Indiana. What's on your mind?
Well, hey, I just wanted to say, first off, I'm a big fan. I've been listening to you guys for a couple of years now.
Great.
And I really appreciate listening in on news commentary that doesn't make me feel gaslit. So
Doesn't make you feel like what?
Hopeless.
Oh, hopeless. All right. Well, we do our best.
Yeah. But I wanted to call, and I'm trying to word this without being too inflammatory. I wanted to call about Anna-Kasparian, because I feel like that is not getting the right kind of attention. And so,
Okay.
and I know you were gone yesterday, Sam.
Yeah, I
But
think.
I think did you
Oh,
see
sorry,
I commented on this yesterday?
yeah, that's
Okay.
right.
Yeah.
And I know she's a friend of the show, and I know that her and Emma are personal friends, and so I don't think that you need to like completely lambast someone, but I don't know. I felt like, for instance, the clipping of that with the title that she's not anti-trans was not necessarily the right. To me, it just seemed kind of tone deaf. I guess the problem I had was that like that tweet in and of itself wasn't great, but I think the bigger context was the replies. It got very combative and a lot of Nazis popping in, agreeing with her. Ben Shapiro's retweeting her. Carrie Lake popping in saying, "Hey, a broken clock." And some of the replies from her, I'll be honest, were indistinguishable from something that J.K. Rowling would say. At least that's how I feel.
But within the context of like her larger commentary on trans people, I don't think that's a fair critique to put her in the same boat as J.K. Rowling. And like you can have, I think, quibbles with the way the video is titled. I didn't even know that was getting clipped, and I don't have control over any titling. So, but the substance of what I said
and that's not anything about any one that's just more of like a critique of like just show formatting.
Yeah, well, let me
but
since Emma addressed this yesterday, let me comment on it. And I will say this. I mean, in terms of just, and I don't want to spend too much time because this is just sort of a process thing about the titling and this and that. When the way that we do this show is we do the show and then another person clips the show. Now there's on occasion, I'll say like, oh, somebody really wanted this phone call or this and that, and I'll send a message. But part of the reason why we do that is because I don't want what we do on the show to be dictated to how I think it's going to do on YouTube. That, to the way that I can insulate the show from like sort of chasing clicks. That's the way I do it. I do think that the guy who clips the show, sometimes like it's his job to sort of get clicks. And so he may do that in different ways. So, but that's aside, that's a second order thing. Here's my feeling. And I will also say, I didn't read into the whole thread of that because I was literally constantly moving yesterday. But look, I don't have any reason to believe, based upon her commentary in the past, that Anna is anti-trans. But tweeting out something like that, in my estimation, is the tweet itself, the act and the tweet in this context, right? Is an anti-trans act. I just think it is.
Yeah.
Because, and context is everything in this case.
Yeah.
One of the issues I had with Sam Harris back in the aughts was that right in the midst of a debate in this country about torture, he writes up a thing in Huffington Post, which was basically the equivalent of Twitter, maybe bigger than Twitter in terms of broadcasting this stuff, a piece that he titled In Defense of Torture. And, even if I thought that his thought experiment and whatnot had any sort of substance, which I didn't, but even if I did, to tweet that out in the midst of a debate about torture in this country is clearly a political act in and of itself. And he knows what he's doing there. Now, I don't know if Anna was, sort of how conscious she was of this or what, but in addition to the fact that no one is forcing anybody to accept any type of description of who they are. And I'm sure there are some quarters, I wouldn't even say quarters, 16ths, eighths, whatever it is, where people exclusively use language like birthing people as opposed to women and birthing people. But it really has no impact on our life. And it has a huge impact on the lives of people who are trans. And,
Right.
Look, there are, it's not easy for older people, in my estimation, or people just not used to it, to always remember to have some level of sensitivity to these things. And people should do their best. I mean, I don't have a rule about it on the show, but for me personally, I always attempt to say, if we're talking about abortion laws, I try and say women and people who can get pregnant, as just because it costs me nothing and it shows respect to people out there. And particularly at a time where there are people who are under assault for being trans. There are families who are under assault for trying to get their kids some type of medical care, in some way, gender affirming care, or to deal with this. It is particularly incumbent upon us to show that level of sensitivity to the people who are impacted and to this moment. And so, I just thought that the tweet itself, and I don't know what her intentions were about it, but the idea that saying, semen providers, in any way, and look, I will say, saying semen providers, I don't think disregards my manhood in some way. I understand
Right.
that, though, that it's not a perfect analogy, because the fact is that women have been subject to misogyny and to sexism, and men have not. There's a different power dynamic. Nevertheless, I don't think that in any way women are in any way harmed in the sort of society's consciousness by the use of things like people who can get pregnant.
Yeah. I mean, I think you said it right, Sam, and I elaborated on this yesterday. I think it's perfectly valid to say in your personal life, I don't want to be referred to in those more clinical kind of stilted, awkward terms that are inclusive language meant to be inclusive. And we're still incorporating it into our language. It's not that many years that we've been using this kind of terminology. I think that's entirely fair. My critique was, well, as a member of the media, you have to understand, and at least this is what I try to bring to it, is that you're not just speaking for yourself, and putting an emphasis on that in this current context is going to lead to larger problems and adding gasoline to a fire that is already raging, as trans erasure is a part of state legislatures across the country. And on the federal level, we're seeing it from Republicans too, and just like general hate crimes towards them. So that was my emphasis, and I understand if you didn't feel it was sufficient, but I'm with Sam on this, and that's my take as well.
And I will say, look, if someone in your personal life, in your private life, is addressing you in a way that you don't like, you tell them. I don't know that there's anybody on Twitter who has been addressing, her as a potential birth giver.
That's kind of my whole point, is like, it feels like she's shadow boxing against an opponent that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Because
I agree.
No one on the street is calling her that. Nobody, and you go.
Well, if somebody's calling her on the street, that may be the case.
ACLU is saying that
somebody's calling her.
Well, yeah, but it's specific legal and medical context. No one is saying, to her, to anyone, hey, there goes a birthing person, unless they're talking about, hey, we're writing a paper or a prescription or some kind of thing about, like,
you don't necessarily
reproduction.
But caller, like, that could have been a personal instance. You don't know that, and I actually haven't
if it
clarified
is a personal
that.
Instance,
but that's
you deal with it there.
But that's beside the point. But that's my point, right? Like, if it's a personal instance, we're members of the media, we're representatives of the left. Like, I know that that's like what TYT is, right? And that's what people associate with them. You have to just be conscious about that. I'm not conflating one's own personal experience, even if it's awkward, with like what is generally good for society. So that's my I think that's the kernel of critique there.
Appreciate the call.
Thank you.
All right. Now, I'm not going to say we can't take any more calls on that, but we did just dedicate 11 minutes to it. And that's,
I think that's fair.
Friday.
And whatever, I did yesterday, 5-6 minutes yesterday.
Calling from a 770 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Oh, hey, what's up, guys? I think this is Jay in Atlanta.
You think it's Jay in Atlanta, or it's Jay in Atlanta?
Well, who knows? There might be another 770. You don't know. There's a lot of us.
Okay. What's on your mind?
Firstly, thanks for your guys' coverage of those trans issues. I know your passionate coverage is inspiring, so keep it up. And thanks for the coverage of Cop City. I don't think any of us want that here, but I was hoping to talk about TikTok, actually.
Sure. Let's talk about TikTok.
So obviously the spectacle yesterday was xenophobic and a lot of grandstanding. But I think something that isn't really being considered so much is, although, Facebook and Twitter are the same sort of influence and surveillance tools for the U.S. government, we don't have the same opportunity to operate those in China. So I think there's sort of a one-way street going on here. And I think there's no reason that TikTok shouldn't be allowed to operate in the U.S. But I think, even if this wasn't a social media product, there would need to be some sort of, there needs to be a reciprocity relationship there.
Yeah. Well,
thank you.
Yes. I mean, that would be nice, but one of the dilemmas for a society that is democratic is that they are more susceptible. That society is more susceptible to certain things than a society that is autocratic, right? I mean, like
for sure.
We're not going to get China to sign off on this, and I think and that's why at the end of the day, and listen, do you think Facebook couldn't turn around and sell this information to China? Do you think they wouldn't?
Oh yeah.
I mean,
no, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, and so
we have documentation of these social media companies.
Standard soft power.
What's that?
if this is an opportunity for us to expand our soft power by getting our social media accepted into China, I think that's an opportunity that should be examined. And everything you said there.
But that's not going to happen, right? The point is that I've heard for like years that it's authoritarian that China limits Google and Meta and Facebook and U.S. Silicon Valley-based social media companies within their borders. And now we're trying to do it for the same reason, as a way to drum up anti-Chinese sentiment. It's xenophobia, in my opinion. None of these hearings are coming from like a more thoughtful place that you're coming from, where it's a more systemic critique of big tech. Just like all conservative critiques of corporations and capitalism, it's just usually about some racial undertone. They're too woke, the M&Ms and the, Mr. Potato Head and Disney. And then in this instance, TikTok's too Chinese and we don't like Chinese people. So like there's
for sure.
That's the limits
for sure
of
the grandstanding that's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everything you said there is true. Will it happen? Maybe not. But, I think it's something that it's disappointing to not see that be an opportunity used or at least examined.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks for the call. I mean, you could, I guess the way that you would present it would be more like a trade thing. Like we'll open up our market to your vehicles. You open up your market to our vehicles. But it does raise the question. What are we worried about with China having this data that we aren't worried about Mark Zuckerberg having this data?
Yeah.
Or, any of these other billionaires. I mean, I've seen stuff like they're trying to dumb us down on TikTok, by pushing the algorithm that is somehow inhibiting us, or dumbing us down.
Or turning the kids trans. That's what Chaya Raichik said yesterday on frickin' Charlie Kirk.
Well, I mean, like, I am all in favor, and I have said this in the past, like, we could simply say no algorithms. You don't feed us you do not allow these things, or the algorithm has to be similar, or you don't data scrape. Like, I say, like, let's come up with what we're comfortable in inhibiting on TikTok and then apply that to all social media. We won't do that, of course, because these are behemoths, and that is an infringement on the free market that you can't allow these. But I personally, I would inhibit algorithms if I could, without a doubt. Let's listen to some of that hearings yesterday. Should we go with which one should we do?
Let me just pull up the sound sheet right now.
We can
let's do number 4,
Darren
right?
Soto clip. Yeah, the Darren Soto
Okay.
clip. Yeah.
Okay, this is Darren Soto, Democrat from Florida, and taking testimony from Chu Zichu, who is the TikTok CEO.
I'm really hoping we can get that done, and I'm really excited about hearing that from folks. The other thing is that TikTok needs to be an American company with American values and its ties to the Chinese Communist Party. This is something that'll be critical as we look and go forward. And then 3, we all agree we have to protect our kids. The committee should consider banning the use for children under 13 of not just TikTok, but all social media platforms, or at least empower parents. In addition, have rules of the road for teens that are 13 to 17 so that families can do what's right for their families. So for privacy, that's on us. Internet privacy is on us. As far as being an American company, Mr. Chu, as you know, the Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States at the Department of Treasury reviews foreign investment that affects national security. Right now, they've negotiated with your company about this Oracle setup that you've talked about, servers in an American company in America and Texas, and then Oracle would monitor the algorithms. But pressure is mounting. So, Mr. Chu, would TikTok be prepared to divest from ByteDance and Chinese Communist Party ties if the Department of Treasury instructed you all to do so?
Congressman, I said in my opening statement, I think we need to address the problem of privacy. I agree with you. I don't think ownership is the issue here. With a lot of respect, American social companies don't have a good track record with data privacy and user security. I mean, look at Facebook and Cambridge Analytica, just one example. So I do think that, it is not about the ownership. It is a lot about making sure we have Project Texas, making sure that we're protecting and firewalling US user data from unwanted foreign access, giving third parties to come in to have a look at this, and making sure that everybody is comfortable. We're giving transparency and third-party monitoring, and that's what we're doing for Project Texas.
Well,
so, okay, I just have a lot of thoughts about this. The United States certainly does not have a good history with data privacy. I'm old enough to remember the Edward Snowden revelations and the documents showing essentially how the U.S. was able to open the door into data privacy in places like, Google, and get people's data in mass with a dragnet. And we know that these companies have nearly incredibly close, I don't want to say symbiotic, but very close relationships with our governments in both the form of say campaign contributions, lobbying, and literal federal contracts. And I would not be shocked if Meta's extensive lobbying efforts, extensive campaign contributions, both in the form of dark money and what we have publicly, which trends a little bit more democratic, but we know that these companies, like the crypto guys bragging that he does it behind the scenes to Republicans. So that's probably the case with a lot of these companies. That they had a heavy influence over the tenor of that hearing yesterday, because Meta owns Instagram. That is the number one competitor to TikTok right now. And I hate the fact that that's a Democrat up there saying the same kind of bullshit about the Chinese Communist Party. It is Red Scare stuff. It is jingoistic, xenophobic, anti-China stuff that's going to contribute to domestically Chinese Americans experiencing more hate crimes. And the last thing I'll say there too is that, I feel great about this proposal that Oracle is going to monitor the data here. So all of this is just funneling towards a Republican donor, Larry Ellison, now having a new contract with TikTok where they're doing the monitoring, and that's going to be the end goal of this. It's all just such kabuki theater. It's ridiculous.
Well, I should also add, it's not just a question of whether people of Chinese descent in this country are going to, get some type of blowback from this. We're also sending ships, naval ships right now to sort of test the waters off of China. I mean, this is one leg of a, multi-legged stool to gin up animosity towards China so that we can, I don't know if this is some type of march to war, but it's certainly some type of march towards some iteration of a Cold War without a doubt. And there may be some security concern, but at the end of the day, the ownership doesn't matter. What we need is transparency in terms of what's going on with these algorithms, but we need this with Twitter too. I don't feel any more comfortable with Saudi Arabia owning a huge part of Twitter than I do with the Chinese Communist Party. But I also don't feel terribly comfortable with any of these corporate behemoths owning these things either. I mean, let's go in with some regulations that we can apply to all of these social media outfits that protects data, that also inhibits algorithms from feeding people garbage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, it's one thing, you want to go and you want to follow duct tape wallet, producers, or I don't know, beauty tips, or, wood joinery. What are the best routers to use? I mean, these are all good things to do, but the way these algorithms work, they're feeding all sorts of garbage across all of these platforms. And, I don't know. We should be breaking up all these companies so that we don't have to worry about Facebook being able to mount a national campaign to make it seem like, the Chinese have some type of ray gun turning all our fish gay, through their algorithm or whatever it is.
Well, I mean, and the whole Republican obsession with the Twitter files, right? There's government influence in and they're cracking down on free speech as they're trying to ban this social media app that tilts wildly towards the youth, tilts much more towards the left. The young people are the young people, I sound old myself, but young people using TikTok more frequently than other social media platforms. And I'm also just disturbed by the ramp up of this anti-China rhetoric in the face of what has happened with their brokerage of that normalization agreement with Iran and Saudi Arabia, because that tells me as well that all of this is about actually, it's not just window dressing. This is a march towards a Cold War in reality, because they're terrified that the United States' belligerence in the Middle East and taking sides and then killing and using brute force against people who are not on our a sensible side, like anyone that goes against Saudi Arabia or Israel, that has not borne any fruit. It's just created more chaos in the region. And then China steps in, is a more neutral broker, ends up normalizing these relationships with Iran and Saudi Arabia, and then they can dip their toe into both oil pools, and they have more geopolitical resources. Plus, they're connecting with Russia now. So that is what's pushing this anxiety forward. And oil anxiety from a national security perspective, and that being a motivating factor for people in government, hasn't ended well. So that is what scares me about this. The TikTok stuff seems silly on its face, but it really isn't, because it's just the tip of the iceberg.
Yep. Where is Jessica Hyde? I know you guys don't want to keep talking about this, but from the perspective of a child-free gal myself, I thought of Anna's tweet as more of a statement about wanting to be seen as a person rather than an incubator, and I felt I could understand where she was coming from. The language that people use to avoid the word woman can sometimes lean more into the idea of what you can and cannot reproduce. I don't like these attacks on Anna, but I especially don't like it when different groups get into a suffering contest. Yeah, the problem is that in no context other than when it comes to reproductive rights do you hear people use that kind of language in that situation.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe somebody on the street corner has that conversation, but you see it in reports that are talking about abortion rights. You're seeing it in reports in terms of medical treatments. I mean, this is if what you were saying was actually the case, then that would be a legitimate conversation. But that's not the case. Mm-hmm. It just isn't. It's imaginary at best. Calling from a 231 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi, this is Matt from Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Matt from Grand Rapids, Michigan. What's on your mind?
Yep. So I just wanted to call about a segment that I was subjected to yesterday on Tucker Carlson of him speaking with our failed gubernatorial candidate, Tudor Dixon. And I come from the north, not quite the UP, but there's a large battery factory being built in Big Rapids, Michigan, same town as my alma mater. And this segment had them freaking out because it has ties to China, when it would bring 2,300 jobs to a very poor area where I'm from. Poverty rate is 26%.
Wow.
And it has a 10,000 people population, just kind of in that general area. So it kills me to see my community shoot itself in the foot and try to rebel against 2,300 jobs coming to a very small area.
Yeah, I mean, I can't tell you how, in the 80s, it was all about the Japanese buying up everything in this country. And it was this is part of like a larger. This is part of the problem, right? I mean, this is one of the problems associated. We live in a society, and maybe all societies need this on some level, where there is an enemy that is created, right? An outside enemy, and it has not been useful, or it has run its course for the time being. That there is like this massive threat by Islam. I mean, it was only 10 years ago where it was just a question of time before the 1.6 billion Muslims are going to take over this country. And I mean,
Sharia
this is
law.
what's amazing. Sharia law, here's the thing. And maybe it was 10 years ago. There was like state after state after state. Everything that we're seeing with trans people, we saw with Sharia law. But it didn't, I will say this, it has escalated far more with anti-trans legislation. And it really is inhibiting the lives and having a more material impact on trans people, because there was nobody in the country trying to set up like small caliphates in Indiana where they would practice Sharia law. That wasn't happening. It was complete fiction. The reality is we have trans people in this country, and all this anti-trans legislation is having material harm on people and families. But this cycling through of new series of enemies that are created largely from whole cloth, really ultimately for the benefit of corporations and for, financial interests that aren't even necessarily quite often are not anything that are going to benefit or hurt people across the country, right? Like we can we can onshore. I mean, here's an opportunity. We can onshore some of our work. Doesn't matter if it's Chinese owned. If that company is in America, we have the capacity to turn those machines on and produce if we want to produce.
Yeah, and I think it's largely, Michigan's state government largely turned Democratic, and of course it's Tudor Dixon saying, "Well, this is your governor letting these Chinese companies." It's the same kind of cheap political trick that we saw with Abbott. Instead of busing people, it's trying to bust jobs out of very needy places, and I mean, largely white community. So there's a lot of, it's really easy to say China and get people's hair standing on their head. So it's just.
Do people remember Foxconn in Wisconsin? Like, Scott Walker was like touting this as a massive like job builder, and they gave him all sorts of subsidies. And then, of course, it never even materialized, as far as I can tell. But it's ridiculous. I appreciate the call.
Thanks.
All right, we got time for one more call, and then Andy Kindler's going to show up soon.
Whoa.
The time flies when you're just taking phone calls.
It really does.
Let's see. We got so many callers lined up. Everybody's been on the line for a long time. Let's call him from a 401 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Is this me?
Yes, it is you. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Sam, this is Mike. I'm calling from Rhode Island.
Mike from Rhode Island. What's on your mind?
So a couple weeks back, you guys had a show where you were covering, in the fun half, you guys were covering the apolitical stance that Russell Brand kind of takes. And I work in the IT sector, and I have a mentor, and he kind of takes that stance as well. So I want to get your perspective on his position. His position is that he does not follow politics or have a skin in the game because it's all theater, and it's all performative in the sense that he claims that, for example, AOC and Gomer, I think Gosar, the whole situation where Gosar had the anime depiction of her basically being attacked in a violent fashion. They had the little brouhaha over that, but pretty much are still like talking to each other, conversing. And he states that the politicians act as if they are enemies, but, know each other's families, go out to dinner together, and, commiserate with one another. So I just want to get your perspective on that. Do you think
I think in some instances that's the
validity
case.
to that?
I think in some instances that's the case. I have a feeling that in AOC's case and Gozar's, that's not the case. It's certainly not the case, with her and some of the other people, because they really hate her. But my response to your mentor would be, yes, there are parts of politics that are performative. But if you actually want to look into politics, then you'll see there are implications to this. Performance is part of politics. Of course it is. It's about communications. It's about convincing people. It is not, it is not a binary system like coding is, for instance. It is a social endeavor that has to do with convincing people to do certain things. But the implications of that, to put it in the terms of tech, he's looking at the, he can, if he wants to, that the actual politics are the code. What he's looking at is the representation of that code. He's looking at the matrix, to put it in terms of maybe would relate to the IT field. He's looking at the matrix. And, you need to see through the matrix on some level to look at the code. And at the end of the day, the code is what's really important, because that's what has the meaningful impact on people's lives. You're going to get the other stuff because, the reason why he perceives that stuff is because he's not paying attention to politics. He's got to work through that. He's looking at the part that is being sold and the part that's sort of like keeping him disengaged. If he really that's just not what politics is ultimately about. It certainly involves that, but it's not ultimately what it's about. That's the only thing I would say. Like, I mean, certainly within certain instances, yes, there's no doubt. They have, they're human beings. Their conflicts are on, in some instances on policy. I would imagine that, in the case of Gozar and AOC, there's probably more legit feelings associated with that, because when you're getting a lot of death threats, as AOC does on a regular basis, you don't want your colleagues promoting that. But in general, yes, politics is performative, of course, because how else do you communicate with people? Appreciate the call. Good luck with that guy.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too.
Love is back.
Do we have Kindler?
Yep.
Let's take a quick break. We're going to bring on Andy Kindler. I'm going to put the voicemail on. If you're on the phones, are we going to get to all 24 people on the calls right now? No, but we will. We'll do a little bit of Kindler, and then we'll get back to the phone calls. Quick break. We'll be right back with Andy Kindler. We are back. Look,
you can't go
we are
wrong.
back. We are back. We got Matt is out today, so can we raise Andy just a little bit? There you go.
I'm a talking head.
Sit up. That's good. Yes, literally a floating head. No.
Good.
Yeah. No. Yeah, that's great. Ladies and gentlemen, do we have his? It's
music? Fixed a little there. Yeah.
Yeah, there we
what
go.
If I
That's
look
good.
at the? I can't look at
With
the.
a Jew like Andy Kindler, you know you can't go wrong. His ancestors wrote the God Bless America song. A true Obama bot, and he believes Obama can never be wrong. Yeah, Andy Kindler.com.
We are.
You made me laugh so hard, I had to write you your theme song, Andy Kindler.
Andy Kindler. Oh, it's so great to see you. And let's just get this out of the way. I love what you have done with your background.
Yes, that's a watercolor from Andy Kindler. It's not available to sell.
Are you serious?
Yeah, it's my watercolor back there.
Wait, did you paint that?
Yeah, I'm multi-talented.
Are you serious?
I'm not just a funny guy. I have a very sensitive side, and those are watercolors, watercolor on paper.
You got
Wait, are you serious?
Tilt your computer there so we can, because the audience can't see.
Wait a second. No, they can't see it because
you're in the middle.
Narrow. Tilt it to your other way. Keep going. Keep going. We don't need to see your face. No, go the other way.
No, but you're not supposed to have it. You're not supposed to have it. It's supposed to be like, I wonder what that is back there.
No, they can't see it. They cannot see it.
There it is. Okay.
How come I can't go the right way?
No.
Okay,
like literally, you're just showing us your forehead from just different different perspectives on your forehead.
He's adding to the mystery. He's driving up interest for the paint. He's definitely not
I'm
selling.
not kidding. I want to talk to you about. I want to buy one of your watercolors.
That's not what this is about. But I have a price sheet that's available.
All right. Well, no, I am not joking.
I'm only on
that
eBay
whatsoever. No, I am not. I am not joking about that whatsoever.
Andy, this is something that some people have known about me.
Wait, you do sell them on eBay? Are you serious?
No, not on eBay. Do you have to cheapen me even more than I cheapen myself? No, I don't sell anything now because I did it back in the 90s. Most of this was back in the 90s when I was smoking a lot of pot and taking some, maybe a little ecstasy. Come on. Ooh. I don't know why I'm doing that. It used to be legal in Texas. How old could I possibly be?
No, it was legal when I was in college, or pretty close.
Yes.
They kept changing the chemical connections between the elements.
Yeah,
I didn't know you're such a drug expert.
Yeah, what was it back then, right? Like, was it just like meth, or is it now?
No, it's pure MDMA.
Really?
MDMA, which is the great. I'm not telling anybody to take it because I don't think that what you're going to, unless you can have a George Soros financed drug thing. A lot of people don't know that. Your evil George Soros, one of the worst things he did was he would set up tables outside raves and people could check to see if their ecstasy was good. What's next?
Let's get right into this because I got a lot we got to talk about. Okay. This week was the 20-year anniversary of the illegal occupation and invasion of Iraq. And it brought back a lot of bad memories of that era. And yes, you're already highlighting it. We talked about this. This in the run up to the Iraq War, following 9/11. There were people who were venerated. Obviously, this guy was venerated during the war. He got on a flight deck. He donned an outfit, and this is George W. Bush. This was an action figure that was made of George W. Bush with a collapse. There he is. He was like a jet fighter. And here I'm on he flew onto a aircraft carrier to announce mission accomplished.
Yes, I still love it. I still feel it was a mission accomplished for him.
It was literally within a year, not less than a year of the war starting. Mission accomplished, and now we can just stay there for 25 years or something like that. There was George W. Bush, but
we thought he was the worst. We couldn't believe that couldn't be a worse human being than him and Dick Cheney. Can you believe that we thought there were no worse human beings? That couldn't get worse.
I'm not convinced that he still isn't the worst. I mean, he's the worst. Human life, in terms of now he had two, if you aggregate that over the course of 8 years, maybe, but he was responsible for the killing of hundreds of thousands of people, based on a lie.
His father deserted the people when they were the first time they went in. Deserted the people in southern
He basically
Iraq.
told the Kurds in the north, rise up, we'll protect you. And then he was like, not protect you.
Right.
Didn't we just decimate their water infrastructure instead, causing mass disease for years and years?
Well, there was a no-fly zone. I think they put a no-fly zone so nobody could save the people who were being.
Well, and Clinton, had, embargoed or, sanctions and we bombed. I mean, it was horrible. What we did to the Iraqi people, horrible. In the run up to the Iraq war, following 9/11, though, there were other things that happened. Like there were icons on the right. Now we look at the right today and we go, they're insane. But the fact of the matter is they were insane then too.
Yes.
I give you as Exhibit A. This is a doll of Dennis Miller. This was not same doll. Where am I going to find this? This was sold everywhere because he would become such an icon of the right. And it wasn't just like, oh, well, maybe people liked his comedy. This was explicitly a propaganda tool. I'm going to hit the button, and he's got a series of things that he would talk about.
Periodically, you need a show of force against your enemy because it works. Anybody seen Gaddafi lately? Of course not. This guy's now the Yahoo Serious of the Mideast.
The Yahoo Serious of the Mideast.
That reference was old when he did it then. Yahoo Serious had not been, I think it was the late 80s, if I'm not mistaken.
I have no idea what the hell that means. So
Yahoo Serious was a very funny comedian along the lines of your, what's the thing with the guy, and he had that movie Napoleon Dynamite. He was an earlier version of Napoleon Dynamite, which I didn't see.
Well, but Yahoo Serious was like a New Zealand comedian or something like that. But the point is, he's sitting here advocating war, and then also telling a bad joke simultaneously. Here's another one.
Now, I hear some in the pro-choice movement decrying our use of preemptive warfare against terrorism. Hey, if it helps you get your head around it, don't think of it as warfare. Think of it as us choosing to abort terrorists.
Do you understand how this person was venerated?
Do you know that you can't find what is it called? A GIF? I always get it wrong. Is it a GIF? GIF?
I think it is GIF.
Yeah, you cannot find any of them. You can't. Maybe there's a couple out there, but he's not even GIFable at this point. People don't know who he is.
Dennis Miller. I mean, it's amazing. I mean, the guy wasn't that funny, but his political commentary worse.
The world should remember that the United States sent that along, but at the end of the day, it is connected to a big friggin' bomb.
Can you imagine a kid opening that up on Christmas? What'd you get me, Daddy? Hey, what's
going on back there?
Oh, that's a self-referential joke to the fact that I'm pressing the button on the thing.
Oh, someone's pulling a string?
Yeah.
He can't even do
literally a button.
Joke?
And quit bringing up our forefathers and saying they were civil libertarians. Our founding fathers would have never tolerated any of this crap. For God's sakes, they were blowing people's heads off because they put a tax on their breakfast beverage. And it wasn't even coffee.
Oh.
See, this is back when the right said, the Constitution's not a suicide pact. It's not a suicide pact. We don't need to worry about, spying or all the TSA stuff or any of that. And then, of course, it switched when all of a sudden, I'm getting censored on Twitter.
Sounds good to me.
Oh.
Who are you going to rely on now? UN? Last time I was in New York, I took the United Nations tour. Even the guidebook is spineless.
Oh,
the guidebook is spineless.
I mean, unbelievable. This
a
is just
book
unbelievable. I mean, this is like, honestly, like, this is like we're opening up a time capsule. And it's like, how were people so insane at that time? I got news for you. This is what they're going to say about this period, too, except for we don't have the dolls to represent it.
We just have
That's just
NFTs.
my opinion. I could be wrong.
No, he's very humble.
Yeah. Remember, this is all set up by the fact that on 9/11, his Fiji water shipment was late, and he went ballistic and he blamed the terrorists, and that's it. He was changed. He lived in Santa Barbara, and the world was different now.
He couldn't get his Fiji water.
Couldn't get his Fiji
Guess
water.
what, folks? That's the news, and I am out of here.
I love it that nobody knows. Really, I mean, he was one of the most popular comedians in America. The Black and White special was a big hit. Many people, including me at one point, thought he could be funny, choo choo cha cha ching ching. But he was always a terrible person. He was always a horrible. The Sklar brothers, who are a comedy duo, they tell the famous story about booking him for their college in when they went to the University of Michigan, and they were 5 minutes late, and he just screamed at them. They're like,
"Oh, is that right? I never heard that."
College
story.
kids, they're screaming. What the fuck? He's just always been a terrible, terrible, terrible human being who covered it up with some funny jokes early on.
Let's try one more.
It's about time you found the button, Zipperhead.
Oh, yeah, I'm
Oh.
sorry. I found the button and Zipperhead.
Is that Zipperhead?
Yeah, Zipperhead. You ready? Wait, let's get another one.
Now, I don't want to get off on a rant here.
That's
Hey, what
his
if those
tagline.
crop circles are just ads for Target?
All right, this is just some of the lame jokes. Hold on.
You'd like to go an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth with terrorists, but every time I see them on TV, all the teeth are rotted out of their heads, or else
that's
they've
nice.
lost an eye because they saw a chick's ankle somewhere along the way.
Whoa.
Yeah, nice.
No, there's no xenophobia. The thing I like is
No.
that there's no xenophobia involved in his act.
Not
Clean.
at all.
Anyone's
other than
teeth
the
could rot.
bombs they strap to their chest, I have absolutely no idea what makes the Palestinians tick.
That's nice. Other than the
Huh.
bombs they strap to their chest, I have no idea what makes the Palestinians tick.
It sounds like a Ben Shapiro tweet.
And just like, like when you hear people saying like the Republican Party has gone off the rails, I just the way like this doll is 20 years old.
I'm
This
older
doll
than
is 20
that.
years
I
old.
remember that they were off the rails in the Vietnam War. I mean, I'm seriously that old. I went on a march against the Vietnam War. It's one of the worst stories of my life. It's a totally true story. I'm doing a candlelight vigil in 1969. My best friend's walking next to me, and he goes, "Andy, I don't know how to tell you this, but you're about to," and I walked directly into a parking meter. That's the way he warned me, and I got knocked to the ground during my only candlelight vigil march. He goes,
that's a
"Andy,
great
I don't know
friend."
exactly how to tell you this, but there's a chance that if you continue to walk, boom."
God. Who says I don't know how to tell you this? It's stop.
He thought it
Don't
was funny.
walk into that.
He thought it was funny. That was back in those days. It'd be, when your friend would walk into a parking meter, we'd all crack up.
Because that was going to be, there was no social media. That's what you had to do for fun.
Just got depressed thinking about that.
Yeah,
That's just his laugh.
That's how you found the button, vertebrae 4. Now
Vertebrae
press it,
4.
move away from the doll. What are you, chiropractor?
He must have hated this session. Dennis, can you do one more thing
Kim
about?
Jong-il in North Korea must be a bad guy because you usually don't get to lead up a country when you look that freaky. What's with the hair? He's like a Chia dictator.
Oh
my God. All right, last one.
I didn't know it
promise.
was this terrible.
You know, the French might as well gas up the dinghy and go fishing with Fredo because they are dead to me.
That's the Godfather. When Fredo was killed, he went out on a boat, and it's a current reference. I think the movie was in the 70s.
You know
And this
what was
2000.
really painful was when France found out they were dead to Dennis Miller. The country's dead to him. Oh no. Sacre bleu. What will we do? No Dennis Miller to visit us.
Dennis Prager wrote a whole book about the French.
People don't understand. They changed the names in the commissary in the Congress. I kid you not. From French fries to freedom fries.
I thought in 1991, when the first Gulf War, I told you the story before, I was playing Grandpa's Comedy Club on Staten Island, And before the show, the guy goes, hey, look, hey, don't talk about the war. All right? Like I'm going to talk about the war in this comedy club on Staten Island. You people don't realize that we armed Saddam Hussein in the 80s. You can't live like you're on an island.
Oh my God. Let's
Grandpa's Comedy Club, Al Lewis. Remember Al Lewis from the
Yes.
Munsters?
Yeah.
He was the voice of the comedy club. I'm Al Lewis. Come down to Staten Island. If
Is
you
that
like
right?
racist comedy, come on. Are you white? Do you like pizza? Get your ass down to Grandpa's Comedy Club.
Andy,
Put your
you-
slices of pizza down and listen to me.
you, as you've explained to us, have been a professional comedian for decades upon decades now.
Since 1987 as professional.
Is that right?
Yeah, I started on the road in 1987. I went on the road for 5 years and played during the time period where if you could say, how you people doing, you can make like $20,000 a year. So
That was the heyday. All you
I cut
needed
my
was
teeth
8
on the-
minutes and a brick wall.
That also translated to a sitcom thing like Tim Allen.
Exactly.
Hey, I'm a tool guy. Anything?
People don't
another
know
horrible
that
person.
that cable guy, right? The cable guy first came on as a parody. He
What
was
are you talking
doing.
about the movie? Larry the
Larry-
cable guy.
Do you know this story? You know this story.
No. Tell me.
Oh, Larry the Cable Guy, when he first went out as Larry the Cable Guy, he was doing it as a parody.
Oh yeah, it was Dan Whitney was his name. Is his real
Yeah,
name.
and he was doing Larry the Cable Guy as a goof on Larry the Cable Guy. And then people liked it so much, he just started doing it as if it was like the joke.
Yeah,
like,
it became Larry the
at first
Cable Guy.
it's like coming out and doing, it would be essentially the equivalent of me doing Ken, the fake right-wing talk show host, and finding that it gets so many hits on YouTube that I'm like, screw it. I'm not being Sam Seder anymore. I'm just going to be Ken.
You saw the movie where they think they're flying to. This is the greatest movie ever. It's Get Her Done is his catchword. But it's a movie where he thinks he's flying to Iraq and he ends up in Mexico. I didn't see it. I did not see it. But can you imagine what could happen when he thinks it's Iraq, but he's in Mexico?
In the Spanish, what I don't know. What do they speak in Iraq?
They speak Farsi. I don't know.
Is it Farsi? No. Do you know what it is, Bradley?
Near sea and Farsi.
Nice that we could be in
on.
a war with them for that long.
But you
and
know
have no
what
idea
they
what they
speak
speak.
over there.
Like, I
Emma,
mean,
come on.
Arabic?
Here
I don't know.
is all right. Yeah, I don't know. It's amazing that don't know. It just goes to show you the ease in which we can go to war. Don't even know what
Back
language
when the
they speak.
Shah was there, you could wear a suit back in that country. You know what I'm saying? That's what it was. That's the mentality of Americans back. They had no idea what happened in Iran. They had no idea the history of it. And they're like, look, because the people wearing Western clothing, you know, there must be sophisticated people. And we're not getting much better as a country, except this show is good.
No, we're not getting much better as a country. But let me get back to the point. You're a professional comedian. There was, I don't know if you saw this bit by the guys at Daily Wire where they were asked as to what they would rather do, wash dishes or do the laundry. And they all basically, all the guys said, I'll wash dishes. I have no idea how to do the laundry. I never do any chores around the house or whatever it is. And it was really funny. Do we need to watch that clip? Have you seen it? Okay, let's watch it. Let's watch it.
Okay, that's it.
Let's just watch part of it. I don't want to watch the whole thing.
Oh my gosh.
Jesus.
The Daily Wire.
All right, Matt.
It's kind of a trick question because I hate them both equally. But I guess I would say I would rather do the dishes, but I'd prefer if she just did both of the things.
Michael, to you.
Dishes, it's no question. I'm not sure in our entire marriage if I've ever done a full load of laundry, so I think I have that one.
I like it. All right, Drew.
Well, this is a trick question because I have not done anything around the house for 40 years. I've been a completely useless. But it's clear that I have to choose.
All right, we've seen it. You've got the gist.
Scott
of it.
Adams. That's Scott Adams, is the third guy, right?
That's no, it's not Scott Adams. And all right, but here is now rightfully, people saw this online and said, this is what a bunch of losers. Like, they don't know how to take care of themselves. They're just, they leave mommy's house or whatever.
Man babies.
And then there was some debate, like, are they joking? Is it real? Because, but it turns out this was very upsetting, the criticism that they got to Matt Walsh, because like literally days later, weeks later, he's still like complaining about people criticizing it. Here he is.
You caught us. You caught us. We are normal people and men who are in normal, happy marriages, and we have a sense of humor, and our wives do too. You caught us. You caught us red-handed. You caught us red-handed being in healthy, well-adjusted, normal marriages where we have a sense of humor about things. You caught us. I don't know what to say. I mean, and I know a sense of humor and a happy marriage are two things that nobody at Media Matters has ever had or will ever have. And so for them, this is like shocking stuff. And just so you know, like some of what you saw there, I know I have to kind of break it down for you freaks. So a lot of what you just saw there, it's called, it's called a joke, okay? And joke's a very interesting word. It's a J-O-K is how you spell it. And so this is what's called, it's like just being kind of humorous and laughing about something. Do I know how to do the laundry technically? Of course I do. It's like you throw the stuff in and you hit the button. It's not that hard. You put the detergent in. Of course we know how to do that. Now, as far as sorting the laundry by color or whatever and all that kind of stuff, or checking the labels on all the individual items of clothing to see what setting to put it on, I'm not going to do that. Now, do I know how to do it? Can I read the label physically? And I can, but I'm not going to do that. So it's more of a kamikaze approach. If ever my wife makes the mistake,
it's a woman's job.
Putting me anywhere near the,
yeah,
I'm going to take a more kamikaze approach of just, it's kamikaze style, throw it all in there and whatever happens, happens. In fact, just recently, I did a load of laundry and everything came out pink. And my point was, it's kind of a fun game. You just throw stuff in. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what color it's going to come out. You don't know what size the things will.
Yeah.
He went kamikaze style on the laundry, man. I mean, oh yeah, with the bazooka, let's go.
That guy
I'm a
is
man.
I've never seen Matt Walsh before. I've never actually seen him. I hear them people talk about him. I didn't know he was such a great performer.
Andy, as a professional comedian, how do you characterize a situation where you have to spend more time explaining something was a joke than the actual joke took? Like, how do you characterize that type of situation?
Well, first of all, what example of right-wing humor has there ever been that you can even point to besides P.J. O'Rourke? Is that where you're going to go back to there's not a sense of humor on the right. Isn't that Jesse Waters guy supposed to be their right-wing comedian?
No, it's Greg
Gutfeld.
Oh, well, no, we know he's terrible, but don't they have a guy who's like, yeah, well, we know.
Well, Jesse does bring like a certain level of like frat date rape energy to the show.
He used to do like the man on the street segments for
right,
Bill
right,
like,
yeah. Where are you from? Are you from Mexico?
Yeah, exactly.
But it's just like, so first of all, he's totally not mad. He's totally not mad, right?
Matt
Walsh.
Totally not getting.
Yeah.
Boom from Afghanistan says, I'm pretty sure Matt Walsh will do just fine sorting the colors.
Good one.
You couldn't have come up. First of all, it's like a hack comic is like a takeoff on Jerry Seinfeld. What happens to the socks of the dryer? What happens to he can't even come up with that level of material. What's up with he did with the pink? That was very funny because he put all the colors
But the
together.
original thing he's talking about, the joke was, I didn't know how to do laundry. It was a joke, everybody. My wife has a sense of humor.
Yeah. My wife loves being a kept woman that has to do all the chores in the house and can't trust her partner to do basic human things that most kids over the age of 13 understand how to do. Also, I just want to say really quick, I think he's really pissed because the Media Matters person that wrote about this and circulated it, trans woman.
Yes, of course. That's why it's completely enraging to him. But here's the best part about it. It's like his definition of a joke is saying something that is sort of like demeaning to his wife and demeaning to him, but saying it in front of everybody in a way that's not funny, and therefore it's a joke.
I thought he was losing. I mean, I really thought he was be having an internal breakdown when he was like, "Yeah, no, here's the difference." Because he was like, "Yeah, here's the difference. Here's the difference. Yeah, see, difference is we have a sense of humor." But if someone's pointing to their sense of humor, they can't possibly have a sense of humor. I like to laugh.
I enjoy using irony in my speech and in my writing. And therefore, yes, I have a sense of humor.
Oh my God, that was hard.
Webster's dictionary defines a joke as
Yeah. What was that backdrops? Was it a game show? I couldn't figure out what they were even doing.
No, it was some type of like pretend game show, and that's why it was funny.
They were trying to humanize
a real game show.
It was like it was sort of like they asked their wives the questions beforehand and see how they'd match up with their answers.
It's the dating game.
Yeah, exactly.
Make sure you don't go too far outside of the appropriateness. I mean, you can joke a little bit about your wife's inability to do the laundry or your inability to do the laundry, but keep it light.
No. But all of their wives are very good at the laundry and dishes. That's the point of pride for them. They're just bad at it, and that's also the point of pride. Because, like, look, it's just they're trying to sell the 1950s lifestyle to that audience.
Andy, when you've had jokes, and I know obviously
when I've had jokes, I'm
multi-decade career, you're going to have jokes that don't land.
Who died and made Jim Belushi a big star? That's an example of a joke. Should always
when you have jokes. When you have, I don't know if people, that's like, that may be an old reference for a lot of people.
I know it is. I only know one Belushi.
But when you have a joke that falls flat, do you find that if you spell out the word joke, people then get it?
It was a joke. Do I have to spell it out for you? Seriously, when the person, you could tell that person Matt Walsh, does not have a funny bone in his body. It's like it's the opposite of funny. Unfunny.
It's like a black hole of funny. I mean, also, to be fair, Ben Shapiro, like almost all the people who work there now, I think about it, they're all in that same way where they are desperate to be funny people. And when people don't laugh, they say, you just don't have the ability to understand. Let me spell it out for you. That was a Joke.
Well, I think Shapiro didn't even interview Miller or something at one point.
Dennis Miller.
Well, he's interviewed comedians and talked about how the great comedians aren't. What his example would be Leno. I don't know what his example was, but the whole thing is like things have changed. Used to be funnier.
The great comedians, according to these guys, are not funny. They just deliver the joke and then literally have to point out that they made a joke. That's comedy to them.
Do I have to spell the punchline for you?
All right, Andy.
Laugh, people. Come on, Laugh, people.
What's the latest with Andy Kindler?
Well, I'd like to say that there was a lot. I didn't know that there would be things going on. There's nothing going on for me. I'm a hermit. I've been a hermit since March 11th. I flew back from New York, a family tragedy. I flew back March 11th, 2020, and I haven't left the apartment. Although I did a gig. I think I did a gig in a club. I did a gig in a club in Largo,
you did?
LA. But you don't have to be near people there, and you can be in a separate cubicle.
Are you gonna get back out soon? What's going on?
Yes, I'm making another.
Are you planning to do this for like another couple of years or what? What's the deal?
No, I'm thrilled about this because I made and I still tell people because no one will listen to me. There's no reason why you can't download. Hence the humor, which I'm very, very proud of. And I'm going to make another album. No visual. No one has to look at me. And it's gonna. And I never have to sign a copy of it in front of other people who could give me COVID. So that's what I'm going to do.
So are
I'm
you going to
making an
do?
album.
Are you going to? Is this going to go? Are you going to do it live at a club, or are you going to do
Yes,
this in a
yes.
studio? Has anybody ever done a stand-up album just in a studio? Like
I
just
don't think
into
Maria Bamford did it where she did just for her family. She's done things like that, you know. Maria Bamford even would like do, I think, a show for one person type of thing.
That's funny.
There's all kinds of weird. We like to have fun in stand-up comedy.
I've heard good things. I may try it out or just listen to it.
I would love to see me and you hit the stages.
Oh no, I wouldn't go on stage
like
anymore.
a vaudeville style act of. I just think it's in our bones. It's in our bones. You know that a couple of generations ago, we would have been, "How am I gonna sing that bag? Wanna you smile?" That could have been you. Oh, man.
If it involved singing, I would have been in big trouble. Andy Kindler, Thought Spiral.
Did I kill today?
You killed today.
Absolutely.
Thought Spiral. If you want to hear two Jews talk for 2 hours and a lot of times fight with each other, please listen to Thought Spiral with Andy Kindler and Josh Elvis Weinstein.
And people can go to andykindler.com and download all of your
Don't go there.
comedy
Don't go with my website. It has my booking dates from 1987. Don't go there. I
go there to find out what Andy was doing in 1987.
No, but go to I don't have a home anymore. You know where I live? I live over on Linktree.
On Linktree? How do you access Linktree though? Your link, Linktree.
My nephew had to do it for me. I set up your own Linktree, Andy. Call me if you want to add anything to it. I don't think am I the only person who knows what Linktree is?
No, I know what Linktree is. It's very big on Instagram, I think. That's where I go. Like if I'm looking at like somebody doing like they have some type of special guide thing for their table saw. That's where I go. And then they'll send me to Linktree, and that's where I'll find the link.
I can't stand when you go, how to take a schmoozle off of a schmozzle, right? You're trying to take a schmoozle off of a schmozzle, and you tune into a video. And it's like, welcome to your answers. Every week, we give you an answer. This week, we're going to be covering how to take a schmoozle off a schmozzle. First of all, how's everybody doing out there? I mean, seriously, I want to see
what's going on with you
attached
right
to
now.
the schmozzle in 1 second. I don't want to see welcome back to Internet Daily.
This has the feel that like you thought that our interview ended and you already started on the next one.
Well, no, now
and back-to-back interviews today. I thought there was a different program.
Look, I have a PR person right here. She's moving me along, Sam. I can't. Who am I going to next? I'm going to the Morning Zoo in 1987. Mancow. I'm doing Mancow show.
You're doing Mancow, but it's got to be like somewhere like where is this in Europe or something, right? It's got to be like 8 hours ahead of us.
Well, you know what's amazing? I still want to do one of these pirate shows like Adam Carolla. I'm a pirate. It was like, it's amazing that he's able to get away with it. With people haven't caught on it. It's pirate radio. I don't know why. Maybe I should update my grudges.
Maybe.
Andy,
get out of here.
Rob from Dedham says Andy isn't lying. His website is from 1996. I had to fire up Netscape to view it.
Internet Explorer. I'm still doing commercials for them. Are you an Explorer? Do you have the internet?
Andy Kindler.
It's
always
very sad.
a pleasure.
I love you guys so much. Emma, I'm so glad you were here. Matt, I just want to say
Matt's not here. Matt's in grand jury.
Matt,
you're the best.
Thanks, Matt.
Great job
You're the
today.
best, Matt.
I love you, Andy.
I love you, Emma. This is my home. I want to be the grandfather, the show's grandfather.
You are. You're done. It's
Love
already
you
done.
guys. Be cool.
All right. Bye, Andy.
Bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is 1:30 Freebie Friday.
Oh, whoa.
Freebie Friday. We're going to make it easier. Let's just go right into this. Sam, can the Discord get a shofar for the DJ Cold Cases Feline Familiar? It was Cataly's 10th adoptiversary on Wednesday. Happy birthday. Yes, we can do that. Here we go. Calling from a 386 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from? 386.
Hi, this is B from Queens.
B from Queens. What's on your mind, B?
Lots of things. But I just want to say hi, love y'all, love your work. I've called in a few times when Emma was there, but you were not, Sam. So, hi again, Emma.
Hey,
Hello
B.
for the first time, Sam.
Hi, Bibi.
I am a non-binary writer, performer, activist because I kind of have to be, who lives in Queens, but I'm originally from Florida, Central Florida to be specific. And so I have a lot of friends. My entire family is still down in Florida that are dealing with a lot of the BS that's going on down there. Before I get deeper into that, I just wanted to say very quickly on the whole, like, TYT Anna thing, but very quickly, because you guys covered it very well earlier. I always appreciate the way that you guys cover trans issues because you've done your homework and you've done your research and you've actually made an effort to educate yourself. What I feel like is a trend at TYT in general, especially with Anna and Jank's coverage sometimes, they're just a little careless with language. And for me, it seems to be because they just haven't really done a lot of research or done the work to make sure that they're saying things in a way that's respectful to the trans community. And it feels like very passive acceptance. It feels like tolerance. And tolerance were the breadcrumbs that we were fighting for when I was a child and in middle school in the early aughts. We're past that. We're looking for equal inclusion and respect at this point. And I've tried commenting to them multiple times, but they're big. It's hard to get in touch with them, that they need to sit down and talk to someone who's queer, who does this sort of thing, to talk about the way language has evolved and how they should be covering these things, because they are a very big beacon for this type of information. So I just want to make sure they're getting it right. And I think that they, given that perspective, might actually do something about it. It's just hard to, get into their ears. So if you happen to make that suggestion to someone over there, that would be cool. But anyway, back to Florida specifically. I am trying to fight the things that are happening in Florida the best way I know how, which is as an artist. I actually wrote a musical based on queer Greek mythology because I saw Hadestown and was very disappointed at how cis-heteronormative it was. And throughout the ages, queer myths and queer mythology have been whitewashed consistently. And so I have characters like Hercules' gay lover in my musical and things like that. And so I'm doing the world premiere at the Orlando International Fringe Theater Festival in Orlando, Florida. And if you want to follow it, it's Serve for the Gods, GAWDS, on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. I don't have much content yet, but we're starting rehearsals in a few weeks, and content will be
When is that
forthcoming.
festival?
The festival is May 16th through the 29th. You can also donate to the GoFundMe, which is gofundme.com/serve for the gods, GAWDS. And it basically centers around the myth of Ganymede, who was the one time that instead of Zeus seducing a young maiden, it was a young boy that he seduced. And so talking about all of the chaos that was caused in the Greek pantheon because of that relationship, and talking about greater themes about how young queer people are often taken advantage by straight married men in positions of power, and yet somehow that is always counted as a negative against the queer community, even though we're usually the victims in those situations. And so I'm really trying to drive home the point that queer people have always been here. We're nothing new. The language is kind of new because we're all speaking a language that is very much based on binary thinking, thanks to my ancestors. Sorry about that. But we're trying to change things. We're looking to be included. No one's trying to replace women with birthing people. We're just trying to expand the conversation and include everyone.
Appreciate the call, B. And we'll put a link to your production.
Thank you for the great,
Thank you so much.
context and analysis there. I always appreciate your calls.
All right, folks, going to a 585 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi.
Hi.
Is this me?
It is you. Who is this?
This is Louisa. I'm in Massachusetts, and
Where in Massachusetts?
I guess. Yeah, originally from New York, but now live in Massachusetts, not too far from Worcester.
Sweet. Okay.
Yeah, I guess I just kind of wanted to talk a little bit as well about inclusive language, and I think like strategy, legally speaking, that we should be thinking of. Sorry, I'm a little nervous.
No, that's all right. You're doing great.
I don't know. Like I personally think all of us should be having our eyes on the idea that we don't want anyone to have their medical care or choices dictated by legislation from outside source, anything other than like what is best medically deemed by their doctor or a team of doctors. And, at this current point in time, we kind of, we kind of see them almost like in two different factions. You have like lots of bills that are threatening trans people and the care that they can receive and reproductive freedom.
Right.
But I kind of see them all on the same track. And honestly, it's the way how easily a lot of these trans bills have been passed that are restricting the type of medical care that trans people can get. That's right, all on the same road as I think reproductive measures are as well. We know that they want to come for birth control, probably want to come for IVF as well. I don't really like what difference is there between them saying, oh, trans people can't receive hormone therapy because of their morals versus women can't have birth control because of their morals. There's no difference because it's not, based on medical reasons. It's only because they in their morals see it as wrong.
It is fundamentalism. It's just a religious fundamentalism. I mean, there's no, I mean, people should not kid themselves. There may be non-religious fundamentalists who hold these opinions, but as a political matter, the vast majority of, not even the vast majority, the entire existence of this as a political issue is because it is being pushed systematically and it is a plan. It is a part of a program, and programmatically, I should say, by essentially theocrats. And it is also, I mean, to the extent that it's not being pushed by theocrats, it is being pushed by people who want to harness the theocratic fundamentalist nature of a third of the country to their political benefit. Period. End of story. That's what it is. I mean, the entire, and I appreciate the call. I'm going to talk about this for a second. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks. There's a couple of things that there's a story by Ron Brownstein, I think it is, in The Atlantic, about the Republican Party having like sort of there being this realignment, and we've talked about this, ad nauseum. I imagine when we get closer to the election that we will talk more about it. But if you look at Republican counties or Republican districts in Congress, the Republican Party has essentially, there's been this shift where the white working class, defined by, I think it's under $65,000. I'm not 100% sure what it is. And has sorted itself, the majority of whom now, vote Republican. Let's be clear. Republican Party for decades has always had a majority of white people. They have always won the majority of white people. They are a party almost exclusively of white people, maybe 90%, maybe 88%. But the income distribution has changed. More educated people are voting for Democrat. Broadly speaking, these are broad trends. However, these same districts, they have a good opinion of Medicaid and Medicare and Social Security. They also have greater need for SNAP, for other government programs. Yet they are hostile to these programs. And they're more motivated by cultural voting. And despite the fact that it is, listen, there is no doubt that the Democratic Party is not the optimal party for labor. It is not the optimal party for universality. There is a huge sort of neoliberal strain that took over the party, starting, debatable whether it was Clinton, but it really, in many respects started with Carter, even arguably, with McGovern in terms of taking an anti-labor turn, but whatever. It has existed for, these decades. But it's also indisputable that you would not get rollbacks on Dodd-Frank. You would not, Social Security would not be under threat were it not for the existence of a Republican Party that is, targeted like a laser on these things. Also in terms of SNAP, also in terms of child tax credit. I mean, on and on. To the extent, if you want to characterize it as breadcrumbs, I think that would be a mistake because it has a material benefit to people, without a doubt. I mean, getting an extra $300 per kid per month had a material impact on people. We saw a diminishment of child poverty by 35, 40, 45% over the course of these things. Yet it does not, these material interests are still not the primary interest of these voters. And there's really only two answers that you can provide. We need even more material benefits for these people, which I think we do just as a matter of policy. But as a political matter, it is unclear to me where the threshold is, where that and the ability to communicate this is coming from, a political party. As to motivate them from a voting standpoint. This is strictly, we're talking about just electoral politics here. Mm-hmm. The other question is, how do we begin to undermine the cultural message that the Republican Party is espousing? It was done in terms of marriage equality. It was done. And part of it was just because too many people knew too many people who were gay. And began to realize, oh my God, it's not going to rain cats and dogs if gay people get married. Too many people, they have built up myths about, crime in New York City and in Chicago, and and it's a function of black and brown people. I mean, there needs to be an engagement on these cultural issues, as well as on the material benefits that people need. I mean, it's just the fact of the matter.
That's exactly right.
You can ignore that, and you're not going to be able to get to the point where you can deliver the material goods.
Well, it's just right. I mean, sorry to cut you off, Sam, but it's just important to emphasize that, because I think there's this sometimes false notion that people fall back on that, if the Democratic Party really just leans into kitchen table issues, bread and butter issues, reorients itself towards labor, which we're 100% in favor of, which they need to be doing, supporting issues like Medicare for all, universal child care, what have you, that this kind of stuff will fix itself. And that's false as well. The Democratic Party needs to be doing those things that you describe, but leaving a vacuum on things like trans issues or LGBTQ, racism, all of that kind of stuff, no matter what the Democratic Party does on those other things and providing a positive vision, then you're leaving a vacuum for that stuff to still appeal to people who might already have a cynicism about the Democratic Party. You cannot leave that vacuum from a political purpose, let alone the fact that it's the wrong thing morally to do to just abandon those issues.
Exactly. And, you see Biden out there. The reason why he's talking about Social Security and Medicare is, again, because, these are districts where you have older people versus younger people who tend to vote for Republicans in these districts. And he's trying to remind them that the Republicans are not your friend when it comes to these two programs that are wildly popular. Let's talk. I want to talk about this briefly. Maybe we'll do more of this at another day, and eventually we'll post the show. I got to find out but yesterday or Wednesday after the program, I got on an airplane and I flew to Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and had a lovely dinner at a Marriott bar. And it was one of those like businessy Marriotts, not the fancy schmancy Marriotts.
But it is helpful. Like it's helpful when they have those restaurants in the restaurants, or the restaurants in the hotels.
It was like I got in at 8:30. I wasn't going to go look for a good restaurant to go to, and then early in the morning, I got picked up, taken to a former Chase Bank, which was the home of Valuetainment, which is the company that a guy named Patrick Bet-David owns. I don't know a tremendous amount about him or the company, but they seem pretty big. And I was like, what do you guys do here? I was asking one of the employees. Oh, they put out a sports show and a lifestyle show and then a couple of podcasts and this and that. And I thought that's an interesting business model. I don't think it's going to do well, but maybe it will. Maybe it does. I mean, his show has been on for 2 or 3 years and it does very well. He's a very wealthy guy. I think he made his money from insurance, and I think he had an insurance company and he sold it. I'm not sure, 100% sure, but seems to be a very wealthy guy. And I was ushered into a former bank vault in this building, which is their studio. It's pretty cool. You can see in the background, they have safety deposit boxes that they left in there. I thought it was pretty cool. And talk to these guys. And here is a first clip. This is the administrative costs for Medicare in particular, because Patrick Bet-David was saying, would you rather give money to the government versus the private sector? And he kept using examples of the military overpaying for things. And I said, but if you're really going to assess how well the government does, and I agree that there's a lot of waste in the military and I would love to cut it and audit it. And, but if you're going to assess how the government does, and this guy's like a dollar guy, the biggest line item of the federal government is Social Security. And Social Security is an incredibly effective program. It's not only effective on its face, it's keeping 2/3 of the population out of elderly population out of poverty. And in fact, because of the failure of the 401ks, we're actually seeing a rise in senior poverty because people are having to dip into their Social Security a little bit too early. It's not providing, but when you do that, it diminishes your returns on the other end, but it's one part of a three-legged stool, and the other two legs have been ripped out from under people. And it also is incredibly popular. I don't think you could find anything in society, maybe. I mean, maybe you could, ice cream. But there's not much that Republicans and Democrats agree on, except for that Social Security is great, particularly for people on it. This is a clip. That the biggest part of the budget, more or less, is Social Security and Medicare, right?
And Medicaid,
and Medicaid.
Entitlement programs.
Yeah, you can call them entitlement programs. I call them social insurance programs because
tomato.
That's what they really are.
That's 90% of the budget, I want to say.
No, the military is about $850 billion. Social Security is like $1.7 trillion. I think Medicare is probably close to like $700 billion.
It's about 60%.
And then there's other. But
more.
It's a high number. It's a big number. You're right. It's a high number.
You'll find that it's. I think our annual budget is somewhere around like $2.7 trillion, and the military is like $800 billion, $900 billion. that you can see anyways, that they show us.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, Social Security, Medicare, the two biggest things that the government does are wildly popular. Medicare, you come from the insurance business, you probably know this. To administer health insurance, there's like 13, 15% cost in the administration of that health insurance. For Medicare, 3%. Far more efficient. Far more efficient. And copays are less. I mean, and the whatever you want to call it, consumer satisfaction. I don't like to think of citizens as consumers, but the satisfaction's huge, through the roof, particularly when people use it. It's people appreciate it who don't use it. If I got my parents, they're on Medicare, I'm pretty psyched about it because I don't have to take care of them. My mother's in a nursing home now. It's Medicaid that's doing that. I'm not responsible for that cost. Social Security, through the roof. In fact, I think even Republicans, a majority of Republicans want to expand.
But popular is not a way to qualify something. If I went out there and I gave,
satisfaction.
If I went to high school and I said, guys, I'm giving dime bags to everybody weed, I'd be a very popular kind of high school. So that is a wrong way to qualify.
You said efficiency.
Yeah.
Medicare, 3% administrative costs versus 15%.
That's like the kid that's running for class president who's like, every Friday we're throwing a pizza party. Well, he's going to get everybody's vote. But who's paying for the pizza parties?
Well, workers. In fact, I would argue that we should be actually removing the cap on Social Security taxes, because right now, it goes only up to $160,000, right? There's a cap. Traditionally, Social Security has captured or touched 91% of the country's income. You follow me? And now it's somewhere down in like the mid 80s because of wealth inequality.
But your argument on the flip side of it, the argument can be as well to say, well, at the beginning when they came out with Social Security, there was only a few thousand people in America that was actually using it. It was not meant to be for as big of a behemoth of what it is today.
No, it kept 2/3 of our elderly out of poverty. It keeps 2/3 of our elderly.
Nobody's arguing the benefits.
That's not the argument, though. That's not the argument. The argument is, originally when it came out, it wasn't for the bigger percentage.
You had to wait. You had to wait until you build up the fund.
You didn't have to. You had to have capitalists work and overtax them to be able to fund it. That's what you had to do. But let me go back to the question.
I think what you are saying, just to validate your point, I think at that point, this is FDR back in the day.
We can pull up the data.
I think there was 40 workers for every retiree. I think now it's closer to like 3 workers.
Yeah, it's not sustainable.
It's not even close.
No. It is sustainable.
You think it's sustainable.
No, I don't think it's sustainable. I'm looking at the Social Security Trust Fund actuarial
with
tables.
the letter, when they sent you this in the Social Security letter, they're telling you if we go this way, this is going to go bankrupt.
No, you're misreading it. The trust fund is going to go bankrupt. In 1981, Greenspan and Reagan expanded the trust fund. We had a surge of baby boomers. There is a trust fund that exists that is essentially like a rainy day fund. That is going to be insolvent around 2033.
2033.
10
years. You are correct. I just had this conversation this past week.
However,
that's not a concern. That's not a concern. That's not a concern.
It is a concern. It will cause 20% in cuts to our benefits.
Okay.
But that's it. Period. Now, the way that we can get rid of that 20% in cuts in the Social Security Trust Fund is to do what I'm suggesting. Remove the cap so that every dollar you make, even above $160,000, is taxed by Social Security. And then your kids will be long dead before that trust fund is out.
Hopefully, if I raise my kids right, my kids won't need to be supported by the government.
If they don't need that social insurance, look, I mean, how can you, as an insurance guy, how can you not understand this?
No,
I don't sit around saying like, I hope that I don't need my fire insurance. I hope I don't. If your kids don't need Social Security, old age insurance, then you know what? We will tax the money back.
I am better for society. I am better for society if I find ways to get people off of needing any of this stuff than to rely on it more and more and more, because I'm truly hurting those who are creating commerce. That's who I'm hurting. But let me go back to my question.
Hold on for one second. We had an experiment with this.
Wait a minute.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I love that he did the classic conflation of the Social Security Trust Fund with Social Security more broadly, because that's just like, I mean, I if you were ever to lay a trap
Yeah, it's honestly, it's
You'd be
like
like-
if someone said like, Sam is not spelled S-A-M. Like
Right,
it was basically
exactly.
like, it's sort of my wheelhouse. I was sort of that was.
I did
pretty-
like the admission that when he said popular is not a way to qualify something. It's a little weird to make that case in what is supposedly a great democracy.
Well, I don't know. I mean, there's really only two measures of which you could say, how effective is Social Security, a program to keep people out of poverty. One is, are the tens of millions of people who are in that program, are they happy with the program? And the other is, how many people does it keep out of poverty? And it does both those things. So, and I think the popularity thing is a little bit disingenuous. I've been told that that's usually the typical measure of everything. In fact, at one point in the interview, he's like, how do you know if a restaurant is good? Or, how do you know if this? And, the answer is if a lot of people are going there. Well, I mean, there's a lot of people who like Social Security. If it was a place, they would all go there.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was a little bit, that was an interesting dynamic. Let's go to 615 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, this is Brennan in Kentucky.
Brennan in Kentucky. What's on your mind?
I watched your PBD appearance yesterday.
We were just talking about it.
First of all, it's in my top 10 case studies in the category of leftist and conservative podcast.
We're going to do that in a second. We got that clip too.
We played a little of that yesterday. Loved that.
Second, I really appreciated your tongue-in-cheek comment about jailing rich people. And by appreciate, I mean I was deeply offended and feel compelled to hold you accountable for that.
Well, I never said jail. I said I want to make, and I said to Patrick, I want to make how much money you have it illegal to be as rich as you. And of
Yeah,
course,
exactly,
what I was really saying was that not in a criminal sense, but in a civil sense, in the sense that we have laws that are structured in such a way that people can't amass that amount of money. And and at one point, I can't remember the guy's name, but he said, I know you were joking, but you really do want to put him in jail. And I'm like, no, it was, if I was joking, then I don't really want to put him in jail. But yes.
Yeah, I just thought it was funny that he was saying, I appreciate your joke, but then I'm going to semantically dismantle it.
Yeah, it was a little bit odd. But it was a fun time. They were very polite. And, part of the reason why I went on that show was to show that, I'm not a rude guest when I go there. I think those guys felt like I was a perfectly, a nice guest. And it really does, I think, show that the full-throated right-wingers who, claim that I'm blacklisted or whatnot, must be doing so for reasons beyond that I'm too rude or I'm not a good faith person. I think those guys would have said I showed a lot of good faith. They would disagree with my opinions without a doubt, but I think that was pretty clear.
Yeah, then also I just thought it was very funny at the end, their just disbelief that you didn't like Jordan Peterson.
Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't believe it.
As soon as they asked, I just started laughing.
Yeah.
I was just imagining what you were thinking.
Was not a big fan. Yeah, I did not, that didn't go over well with them, but appreciate the phone call.
Yep, love the show. Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Calling from a 954 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from? Folks, I'm not taking any more calls because we have 16 people on the line. I'm just going to be taking it from people who've been on the phone for a long time. So that's why the phones are closed unless you're already in the queue. Calling from a 954 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Sam, Michael from Miami.
Michael from Miami. I was in.
Bro, you were in my neighborhood 5 miles away from the house. I could have given you a ton of good restaurants to go eat last night, Wednesday night.
I didn't have the time to go out at 8:30 at night. No way. I wasn't going to do that. I was too tired.
Well, I mean, I've been in around the media environment and ecosphere around here for like 25, 30 years. I never heard of those guys. It must be some type of internet only deal that, that shows up. How do they even find you?
Well, he's interviewed a lot of people, and I don't know. I think I think there were people who were tweeting at him or something like that. I'm not 100% sure what
he interviewed Kalinsky and Pacman and stuff, so they kind of went asked for Sam, I believe.
Yeah.
Well, good for you. Congratulations. But those guys are a non-entity as far as any kind of local profile down here. They don't exist.
I think he just moved to Florida a couple of years ago. I'm not sure. But yeah.
Well, the area you're talking about, I think I know which Chase Bank it is too, by the way. And the Marriott you stayed at, like I said, is literally 2 to 3 miles, 5 miles away from the house. So it's kind of funny. It's kind of an industrial area. Not terribly attractive, but
no.
I'm glad you had a good trip out, if nothing else. It sounded like you made some progress with those guys, which is a thing in and of itself. But
yeah, it was fun.
The rest of this state is it's interesting. I mean, I know you guys are getting a bird's eye view from what's happening, and every once in a while you get a blur. But on the ground down here, it's almost surreal because so many things are happening, and we're right in the middle of the legislative session, that they're literally throwing all this crap out there that has been stored away for 20 to 30 years culturally that they've been dying to put together. And it's like this mass convergence has taken place where they realize they have all the political power they'll ever have so they can push through anything they want. It's like an army which thinks it has a foe in front of it that's really, formidable. And all of a sudden they realize there's nobody there. So we just have the run of the field. We do whatever we want. I mean, it's worse than you can possibly imagine, even down here in the blue counties.
How are people responding to it? How are people responding to it?
Well, it depends who you are. The Democrats are resigned to being essentially the whipping boys. And the sad thing about this, and we talked about this, this state's 50-50 registration. Well, not anymore. It used to be. It was probably 52-48, maybe Republican versus Democratic registrants. But the Democratic Party offers no resistance. They just put Nikki Fried in charge of the state Democratic Party, who just got, her ass handed to her in the primary by Charlie Crist. And then she was the former agriculture secretary under DeSantis for like 4 years. It's a joke. You have tired, old, incompetent leadership in charge of 48% of the population. That's probably going to get worse and worse. And as we've talked about before, the state changes almost on a daily basis. All those people, all those situations that took place during COVID who got tired of restrictions and tired of cold weather and tired of whatever, they saw this area as the promised land. I can't begin to tell you the absolute revolution in the number of people and the type of electorate that now exists as opposed to what existed just 4 years ago. I mean, it is literally a tidal wave.
It's all red,
race
right? I mean, it's
in
red.
Illinois and New Jersey and Pennsylvania and Maryland and New York. They're all here. They all moved here.
Well,
they all came down, and now they run the show. And to answer your question, they're happy because they think this is somehow going to be, a barometer or a laboratory for the rest of the country. But the problem is, and this is what, you guys, the smart people have figured it out. But DeSantis is a guy who has been hitting single A and double A pitching. By the time he gets up to the major leagues, he's going to get his ass handed to him. He has no conception of how to think on his feet. He has no conception of how to deal with any type of controversy or if someone presents a contrary view. He's not built that way. He was never built that way. He literally, I almost struggle to say this. He's like a horse that was like 40 lengths behind, and all of a sudden all the old horses broke their legs, and now he's winning the race by 20 lengths, with the exception of Trump.
It's interesting.
Because he's never had to fight through anything. This thing has literally opened up an enormous field of opportunity that he's just driving through.
It's interesting because on that podcast, actually, they were, sort of espousing, like the other day, I noticed that like the guy is so powerful, he won by 1.5 million votes. Well, Rubio did too. And he ran against Charlie Crist, who lost in three different parties. But what's interesting also about Florida that's happening is that in the same way that we have like congressional districts where things have like started to sort themselves out in some ways, part of it is gerrymandering, but the idea that like we have districts where fewer and fewer districts where that are Republican controlled that a Democrat can win, and where a Democrat is controlled that a Republican can win. In other words, like the numbers are like steamrolling. And if you come out of one of those districts you don't have a sense, particularly I would argue if it's a Republican one, because their perspectives are so far from the mainstream or even like independents, that they have no sense of like that they're in an echo chamber. And I think like the more that Florida's basically done as like, I think even like a purple state. I mean,
No, we're ruby red, bro.
For all intents and purposes.
Iowa, Ohio. You're talking about demographics that existed 10 years ago.
Yeah.
No, that state doesn't exist anymore.
Yes.
When COVID hit, it literally was an upheaval that changed the political landscape of this state, I would argue, forever. Emma's grandchildren won't see us ever have the type of laws we ever had in this state prior to 2 weeks ago. When it comes to, for instance, the tort reform law, which just passed yesterday.
Yep.
Okay. Which changed the entire, I'm not going to bore the audience, but basically changed the way you could file a lawsuit, changed the statute of limitations, changed the way you get your damages taken care of. All that was it was like an insurance company's wet dream. They went crazy. There was no call for this. They just had a special session a month and a half ago to take care of our property insurance crisis, which we still have. It didn't do anything. All they did is take out attorney's fees and basically protect the insurance companies from being sued for doing a shitty job when it came to, reimbursing the homeowners. That was it. That's all they did. But at least you could make an argument cogently that, okay, companies were leaving the state and people were complaining. But there was no great hue and cry for people to sit there and change the tort reform bill. DeSantis wanted it. He's an old-time, hard-line, conservative backbencher for 3 terms from Jacksonville, who was a Yahoo from way back, who decided he didn't like the fact that trial lawyers contributed money to Democratic causes. Period. End of story. So he went after him, and he made a priority. This thing was 2 weeks ago, it was in committee. 2 weeks later, it's not through committee, through both houses, through the changes, through conference, and signed this morning.
Yeah.
Shit like that doesn't happen unless the governor wants it to happen. That's what I'm talking about. He has free reign of everything. Think of the craziest ass, stupidest, most divisive policy you could possibly think of, and it has legs down here. There's a bill in session right now. They want to outlaw. You'll love that. You probably heard about it. They want to outlaw any political party which in the past has espoused the virtues of slavery. Now, do the math. Who do you think that pertains
Right, it was the
to?
Democrats, the Democratic Party.
Bingo!
Exactly.
It'll never pass constitutional muster because it's on its face, obviously, a bill of attainder. It directly goes after a specific party. You can't eliminate political parties because of something that happened 125 years ago, conveniently forgetting the fact that Republicans now are the Democrats who were back then.
Right.
I mean, it's absurd. It's almost surreal to sit here and watch this shit happen. It really is.
Well, what's also interesting, though, is that they're coming from New York, they're coming from Illinois, they're coming from New Jersey. These states got a little bit more blue.
Michigan. How about Michigan? What do you guys think is happening in Michigan? You guys are all really smart. What's the difference between what Gretchen Whitmer's had to do in Michigan and what's going on down here? What happened? Because that was a swing state. I don't think you can call it a swing state anymore.
Yep. And
What's the difference?
Yep. I mean, the country is sorting out in some ways that, I don't know if it's going to be terrible. It's not hopeful. Let's put it that way going forward. But yeah, I think DeSantis, it's going to be interesting if Trump actually goes to jail, which it's hard for me to imagine that would be the case, but it's not completely inconceivable. I think the clock would somehow run out before, we get to the election or whatnot. But if DeSantis manages to beat Trump in the primary, which I think is highly unlikely,
not going to happen.
I don't think it's going to happen.
But I'm curious, what do you guys, Emma and Bradley? I know he's not there today.
Matt.
Sorry, forget the other fellow. Matt's not there. What's your perspective of DeSantis from a long distance view? What do you guys? I know you.
I think he's like Scott Walker. I think he's like Scott Walker or Giuliani. I think there's a lot of excitement about him in his home state, and when he steps outside of it, it's going to look like he's going to be ridiculous. He hasn't gone in front of any type of controversial media whatsoever. All the places he's going are safe spaces for him, and I think he's going to get slammed. But I don't think he's going to win in the primary. But Donald Trump could. Donald Trump. Is
no, unless Trump dies or is in
that's
jail,
what I'm saying.
he's winning that nomination.
That's exactly what I was about to say. This is not a paragon of health, and it's not inconceivable. In the middle of an arraignment, you have like a corner.
Paper locks right in front of the judge.
I mean, who knows? But I think that DeSantis is very much a paper tiger. But maybe we get him out of Florida.
Oh, I'd love to. Well, the problem with that is it's not okay. He's a symptom. The disease is already there.
Yeah, well,
the Republican, and you guys know this. You've said it 1,000 times in your show. Trump is simply a symptom of what's been sitting down there for years.
Yep.
Long before you guys, I mean, for the most part, Sam and I are about the same age, but this culture of grievance, the shit they're talking about goes back decades. The stuff they're talking about, they were pissed off about in the 60s. Whether it was busing or integrated neighborhoods or having to deal with, women in the workforce. So they have held on to this stuff forever. And now they finally see an opportunity to spew all this shit forward. The economic stuff you guys talked about earlier is legit. I mean, there's no question that people benefit from child tax credits and the other unemployment extension and the extension of other things down here. But they would rather hate their neighbor and feel better about it and be told that the gay guy down the street and the trans couple down, who they couldn't even find, by the way, you're better off with those people being hidden away than anything else. That's you know what occurred to me. Say, well, they're voting against their interests. No, that's their interests. That is their interest. That's what they care about.
Michael,
that's what they like.
Great to hear from you, man. Appreciate the call.
Stay in touch, friends. Good seeing you. Take care.
I mean, I remember, like as a kid, the big controversy was like, Ms. or Miss. Like, do I really have to say Ms.? Like, honestly, like this it sounds ridiculous. I don't even know if people use any of those anymore. Like, I don't, in my life, even at my age, like I don't find myself saying Mrs. anybody or Ms. or whatever it is. But this was a big controversy. Like, how come people are insisting on calling Ms.? It's Miss or Mrs. The idea that that's what's so childish about this. Like, I don't, he, she, they, I can't figure it out. Like, all right, well, then just do your best and don't be a jerk. It's just unbelievable to me that people are this arrested in some way. But speaking of which, one more clip from the PBD show. You didn't show this yesterday, did you?
Well, we
didn't show the context, like in terms of like the before and after. We just showed the little part, so we can do it more substantively.
This is there was I had said to Patrick Bet-David, who I believe is worth $200 billion, maybe more, I don't know, whatever it is. I said, because I was saying like, I want to do 90% taxation in the same way that we did for the 50s and the 60s. At that time, it was for like $470,000, I think, and it would be $3 million today. So every dollar after $3 million, you pay 90%. And there's a lot of like his fans and this and that were like, and I've seen this before with libertarians, like, that was not the effective tax rate. The effective tax rate was only 50%. Where people are writing in and saying like, well, the amount of receipts as a function of GDP or the amount of dollar receipts that we got, federal taxes wasn't any higher than it was today, or as a function of GDP wasn't any higher today. That's all true. But people don't understand. The reason why I want a taxation rate of 90% like we had in the 50s and 60s, the greatest flattening, they called it the Great Compression, the greatest flattening of wealth inequality that we've had in the history of this country. The reason why I want the 90% taxation for every dollar after $3 million that you earn per year is not because I want to raise revenue. That may be a byproduct. I don't even know how much we would raise. It is because wealth inequality is one of the most toxic things for a society. It creates political inequality. It reduces opportunities for people. It weakens unions. It weakens labor. It weakens our democracy. It also, you talk about inflation. You've got somebody out there who the idea of like buying Twitter is the way that I would focus on maybe buying a new Subaru, it's a problem. Spending $46 billion for somebody should not be as easy as I go out and go like, I'm going to get the base model. I'm going to get $25,000, a Subaru. Those things should not be the same. Because you talk about, rising prices on homes. That's because you've got a certain segment of the population go out and pay $15 million for a home. And when they're like, how could you keep someone from making more than $3 million a year? I'm not going to be able to buy my first sinks. The prices of first sinks will go down. But here's that clip.
Money to can't come and get it. You don't see nobody coming.
Oh, you're talking about military defense.
defense.
Okay, yeah. So your argument is that
there's so much money. That's what I'm saying.
Let me get back to your how billionaires or even multi-millionaires should be abolished or illegal, as you said. I think you said that sort of tongue-in-cheek.
Illegal and tongue-in-cheek.
Yeah.
But I do think that we should have a structure that you can't amass that kind of wealth.
Let me ask you this.
With all due respect. I know.
Can we get the authorities here to take this pat away?
I have my own opinions, but I'm listening.
It's not the personal. It's not the personal.
Sam, how long you been doing your show, the Majority Report?
I've been doing like talk radio for 18 years.
Majority Report, though.
Well, it was the Majority Report on radio, but as a podcast, it'll be 12, 13 years.
Okay, great. And you have how many subscribers on YouTube?
1 million subscribers.
Million.
No, he's bigger than a million. No, you're 1.5. Are you not like closer to? Why do I think you're at?
Why are you trying to tax him more, Pat?
No, I think he's.
Pat, don't tax him.
He's over 1 million.
I'd say 1.3. 1.3 probably.
Let me pull it up. If you can pull it up to see. Okay, 1.3 million subs. Right. Yeah.
How big do you want to get that?
How big do I want to get it?
Ideally, what's like your target goal in the next 10 years? What would you love to get to?
Retirement.
How many subscribers would you say?
Honestly,
5 million.
So weird.
The only difference that makes to me is that my kid is excited.
Cool. And are you comfortable sharing how much revenue 1 million subscribers makes?
How much like we get in terms of advertising revenue?
Just in general, like what's your top line revenue for a big channel like this?
It's in the hundreds of thousands.
Okay. Now, let's say you got it up to 5 million. Let's just say you want to get retired. You want your kid to be proud of you. And here comes Spotify or here comes Rumble. You probably wouldn't be comfortable with Rumble, but here comes some big media outlet that says, Sam,
Honestly,
you're killing it, dude. You are killing it. We want to give you a $250 million deal to take you, Sam Seder, will get a $250 million deal. Congratulations. You got to take all your stuff off YouTube. We're going to put you over onto Spotify, sort of reminiscent of a Joe Rogan type deal.
Okay.
You're a few years away. You're not there yet, but you'll get there. What would you say if they said, we want to give you $250 million? How would you feel comfortable accepting that kind of money?
Sure. I mean, I don't know if I would.
You would take it?
I mean, I don't know if I would want to actually go onto Spotify to get behind a paywall.
Let's say YouTube wanted to give you $250 million.
If somebody came up to me and gave me $250 million, sure.
You would take it?
Okay, yeah, of course.
Okay, so by your own logic, should you now go to jail?
What? If the tax
you
rate,
made $250 million by your
I'm
own
not
logic,
suggesting that Patrick should go to jail.
I'm talking about you, Sam.
No.
I'm not talking about hypotheticals.
I am saying that I believe
Pause it for a
the
second.
tax rate. It also occurs to
He
me
gotcha.
but
You went
it's
right
interesting,
in
he
that
goes,
trap,
I'm
Sam.
not talking. Did you hear what he say? I'm not talking hypotheticals.
Yeah. Oh, are you? Well,
That's saying hypothetical.
they've called
Honestly,
you
in
down
the
to
back
that
of my
bank
mind,
vault.
on the back of my mind at that
Yeah.
moment, I'm like, are these guys going to offer me $250 million? Because I'm going to take it.
Yeah,
Like,
I
if
mean
you
that's
don't
why you're in the
understand-
bank vault. That's what's in all those security
That's
security
the-
deposit boxes.
Sam, will you take $250 million? I mean, yes. I want you to turn your chair around, and I want you to turn that key. Yes, this is why we brought you down here.
Best trip to Florida
We're
ever.
going to change your life forever. This is such a weird line of questioning. I mean, because they were trying to say, like, would I want to go to jail or would I not want that money? The point is for taxation, because, like this, you'll sometimes get this from right wingers. Like, if you want to pay more taxes, pay more taxes. That's not the way taxes work. The reason why you have tax policy is because you're trying to create broad incentives or disincentives in society. And this is why you have any policy, and the incentives can be backed by the force of law or there's matters of degree. And they don't seem to understand this concept. And this is the thing too. It's like, part of what I noticed about this podcast was like, there was always these attempts to try and like sort of get these moments where they thought there was some form of hypocrisy. But a lot of times these guys don't get into actual debates about policy in that way. Mm-hmm. And they don't really know how to address someone who doesn't, somebody gives me $250 million, of course I'm going to take it. I mean, I'm looking for changes in society where if somebody gives me $250 million, then I'm going to get a 90% tax on everything over 3. Now, I got news for you. If there was a situation where someone's going to give me $250 million for the show, or anybody for that matter, the way that things would be structured under the auspices of a 90% tax on $3 million would be like, we're going to pay you, instead of $250 million up front, we're going to pay you $3 million for, 80 years or something like that. That's the way that they would structure those things. But the point is, I still have the inability to amass the type of wealth that would create a plutonomy.
Yeah, you would take that 250 million.
Rather.
What I mean, I'm sure you get to this, right? Like you take the 250 million, and then it would be taxed at that rate.
Yeah, I think that's. I had forgotten this whole.
It's like such an easy answer, and he thought you got you in a trap.
Watch this. It goes.
I'm not talking about hypotheticals. I'm talking to you.
I am saying that I believe the tax rate should be top marginal tax rate should be over about $3 million, about 90%.
So if they give you a four-year deal,
if the taxes are
that's $75 million a year.
Yes, I should go to jail.
Okay, that's fine.
If what?
If the taxes are at that level and I don't pay the taxes,
you're talking about tax evasion.
But no, I'm not saying that people should go to jail because they make a lot of money.
I'm
said
saying
that.
As a society, you did say that. You were sort of joking.
I was joking.
I'm appreciating the joke, but what I'm asking you is,
like you're not appreciating the
joke. Totally appreciating
the opposite of appreciating the joke.
I just don't want my guy going to jail over here.
I'm not taking him to jail. All I'm saying
if you made $250 million,
should be structured in such a way that people cannot have $1 billion or that they cannot amass enough money where they would have that type of political power.
I don't know
associated with.
So you're more concerned about power.
If I could say this, like, if you think about what is the greatest case study in the world ever, right? And we rank the top 10 greatest case studies. There's a lot of them, right? What the case studies could be. But one of the greatest case studies in the world is how this, a group of 50-something men came together who were not happy about what was going on in Britain. And they started this idea in 1776. And they wrote out the Federalist Paper, the Constitution, et cetera, et cetera. And then that went and turned into this behemoth of a country that positively impacted the world, technology that's being used around the world, and it validated that the best economical system in the world is capitalism. If it allowed people to go out there and are willing to work and how big of a dream they wanted to build and how big of a life they wanted to build, you kind of leave them alone. If they put a limit on how big of a YouTube channel you could make, you can't have a YouTube channel over 10 million. I mean, you wouldn't have PewDiePie, you wouldn't have Mr. Beast. Maybe you'd be happy if you didn't have these guys.
I'm not too familiar with those guys, but let me just say this though. But if what you were saying was true, right?
I mean, if people could tune in if they want to watch the rest, but I went on to explain that, like, the history of how we became an economical powerhouse, to quote him, was not just about 50 guys who wanted to do something different from England. There was this whole component of a massive chunk of
free labor that
Yeah,
we
does
were
the
exploiting.
case study does
And-
the top case study in world history include, some footnotes on the whole slave labor thing?
It was like, I mean, if you
Trail
really
of
want to look at a
Tears.
case study, it's like, if you're going to start an endeavor, do a free labor for a couple of, for a century and more, and you're going to get a good head start on things, particularly if you have the natural resources in which the use of that free labor can be highly effective at exploiting. But
later on, did you rank the top PowerPoints ever created in world history?
I didn't know the case studies, and I didn't know PewDiePie. Apparently PewDiePie is Swedish, and they were like really knocking Scandinavian countries. I mean, if it wasn't for Sweden, we'd never have PewDiePie. I don't like I like vaguely have like some awareness that a PewDiePie exists somewhere, because I just remember it sounding like Pootie Tang, but I don't know. But there it is. There we will I think eventually post this. But I encourage you, go watch it there. It's interesting to see the comments. I'm curious as to like who the people are that watched that show. But I will say they were very nice. They were, it was perfectly, and they, the whole operation that they have there is impressive. I'm curious to see how it does, business wise, because that's a big sort of operation they have there, and it's coming at a time where a lot of like operations like that in this industry are hurting. I only know that from like listening to interviews on stuff, but there it is. It is. I just hope that at one point they're going to call and go like, you forgot your money in the in one of the safety deposit box. All right, we're going to take one final call of the day. People have been hanging on for a long time, but we have run out of time. We'll do this again. I like doing this like all Friday phone call thing. Maybe we'll do it where we don't even have a second guest. All right, pick a number, Bradley, between 1 and 9.
Bradley. Quick. 4, he picks.
Sorry, I highlighted it on the screen. That's what I was looking at.
Yeah, so you took the most roundabout way.
There
to
is no
selecting your
4.
number.
No, that wasn't the number I want. Just give me another number. Don't highlight it on the screen, because that was
All right,
that's not 4.
9.
9. Okay. Calling from a 917 area code. Oh, wait. Calling from a 917 area code.
Hey, Sam.
Hey, who's this?
This is Yosef. Yosef calling from Israel and sometimes New York.
Yosef calling from Israel. What's on your mind, Yosef? My understanding is that Bibi's not backing down on this attack on the judiciary.
Yeah, that's correct. Not expected. He's obviously trying to become a dictator, so this is the dictator's playbook.
Yeah.
On that, a lot of these reforms have been put forward by the Kohelet think tank. And my question is more about the global right wing. You see issues in India. We've seen it with Brexit. And we see the influence here. I moved here during COVID. And, a lot of the propaganda that was going on in the right wing, I saw here as well. So my question is what could we do about that?
What can we do about the right wing, the rise of the right wing and internationally?
Yeah, it seems to be like a lot of these things are coordinated. I don't think, the vaccine skepticism that happened here was necessarily organic, as it happened exactly the same in the U.S.
Yeah, I mean, I think you see a lot of the same, right-wing political operatives go around, from Israel to the United States to Hungary to England. I mean, Bannon goes around, does, and consults. But yes, there's a rise of authoritarianism in the world. I mean, I think ultimately there's going to have to be some, attempt to draw some solidarity across workers in country to country, but I think I don't know the answer to that question, and I don't even know if I have. I don't even know if I not only not have the definitive answer. Michael was very good about thinking about these things. The late Michael Brooks. And I am not as sanguine on this. I mean, I feel like, to the extent that I see a path to that changing, I can only see it really in the context of the United States, because I don't know these various countries as well. And frankly, like, when people ask me, like, what's going to change, stem the tide of what we see in terms of like this authoritarian impulse, this right-wing sort of revanchism, largely, I think it's a function of people pushing against it on a daily basis, and in many respects, hoping that there is, in this next generation, and I see it in younger people, a better vision for the world. I mean, I know that sounds sort of like it is an insufficient answer, and I got to be honest, like, I don't have a better one. I think that, like, I think some of these places, like, honestly, if Netanyahu is successful with this, I am really, well, I think there is an existential threat to Israel. And I think it comes from two places. One is from Israel, and within Israel, and it is not from the people out of power who are threatening the existence of Israel. And the other, I think, for a long time, was the right wing in this country, was right wing Jews. I think, really, in many ways, they have been supplanted by the Christian Zionist movement that basically, it's equivalent to allowing, your friend drive drunk. And the check that the U.S. used to be on the worst impulses within the Israeli body politic was essentially withdrawn 20 years ago. But
don't you think, though, it's just a natural progression of the way that the nation has been constructed? I mean, in the sense that it was in many ways a colonial project. And
I think, listen,
and like, fascism for thee and not for me is unsustainable. And so, of course, it was going to
South Africa figured out
internally.
South Africa figured it out.
They did, but that was because of, I mean, in the end, they became a pariah. But you're saying that's inevitable. I'm not sure I have that same hope, because I haven't seen any.
But what I am concerned about is, I mean, South Africa didn't have nuclear weapons. It didn't have.
Or the strategic outpost element for the United States in that region, where it's seen as like a linchpin for U.S. interests in the Middle East.
A caller, I'm going to let you go as we debate this, because we're going to have to go in a second. But no, I don't think it was inevitable. I think I don't think that it was inevitable that it had to go this way. I think there was at one point an opportunity for a two-state solution. I think at one point it was there was an opportunity. I mean, look, I just don't think it was inevitable. I mean, I think, like, Rabin is not assassinated.
They displaced so many Palestinians in terms of the settlement, and like, you can concede that, right? Like, there was Zionism in and of itself. There were elements of anti-Semitism in the impetus to actually, like, create Israel. I'm forgetting the name of the British officials speaking about how, like, we don't want Jews here, let's put them there. And then the whole project from its outset was there was colonialism embedded in it. So I just feel it's a natural progression to get to this point.
there was colonialism embedded in the United States. There was colonialism embedded in Australia. There was colonialism embedded in, many countries. I don't think it was inevitable that, I don't think it was inevitable that it would turn into this. I just don't think it was. I mean, I think there was there were definitely opportunities and off ramps and opportunities for a peaceful coexistence. I think there was opportunities for a secular. The early Zionists were far more secular than the government is today.
But the example you just listed, even in the United States, we ethnically cleansed the native population here, and we were a colonial country. I mean, so that is the inevitable reality.
Well, I mean, in terms of it becoming an authoritarian state, I don't know that it was inevitable. I mean, like I say, South Africa, prime example of a country that was. In many respects, I think Israel has become worse. But I think if you did not have 2 million emigres come in from the former Soviet Union into Israel, and if you did not have the fundamentalist Jews who came from largely the United States. All of these things coming at the same time. And I think that I think maybe the off ramp was probably closer to the 70s, maybe the early 80s. I think maybe Rabin's assassination was the last attempt, ability for this. But I'm
just skeptical of the notion that the political ideologies of the people that ended up settling in Israel is the fundamental driver of where we're at right now. I believe it's just the nature of setting up a colonial government that is now just based in ethnic cleansing and repression of an entire population. Then the militarization continues to ramp up. There were off ramps, as you say, but I feel like that's more of just the construction of the government as opposed to the people in the country.
That's possible. It's possible. I mean, there was a very strong socialist internationalist streak in many of the people who founded the country. And I think, but it's conceivable. I mean, it's possible that it was a doomed project from the beginning, but the aspirations were very different then than they are now. And I don't know what could have made it different. I mean, the Iraq War also was the brakes were off, and I don't know. I mean, but it would be a good question for a scholar. But regardless, I don't know that it was inevitable. But I think at this point, I think there's a massive danger. I think it's going to become a very, very dangerous situation. Down the road. I mean, in addition to be horrible right now, obviously, and I think worse than apartheid in many respects. I think it could be that could be where something really horrible and tragic comes. Nuclear weapons with the trajectory that things are headed. I think it's very problematic.
Yeah.
Folks, that's it for our call-in portion of the program. I'm going to read a little bit of IAM's. Oh, God, look at the time.
I did not even see the time either. Sorry.
Well, that's probably best. Worcester Ice Cats. Next week is Israeli Apartheid Week on a lot of college campuses. Folks should check out whether they're nearby. College Students for Justice and Palestine Jewish Voice for Peace. If not now, or other groups are hosting any events, and go out and support if they can. All right. Tim Head. Emma, did you see Eric Stahl comments and him denying a war of pride warm-up jersey?
Yeah, and Mark Stahl too. I mean, it's just these guys are heralded as great hockey families, and then of course it comes out that they're just all complete right-wing bigots. The sport has massive problems.
Sam's mailman. I don't buy your Matt's on jury duty story. He's protesting an all call-in show. DC letter carrier. I agree with your guys' take on Anna that it's transphobic act given the context, but that she's not transphobic. I just hope the same leniency is given to other people on the left. Vaush did a video calling Crystal Ball a fascist for her Russia-Ukraine take. He kept going after Brianna in aggressive and over-the-top ways, as well as over her FBI segment. I just wish the left could disagree without splitting into a million pieces.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's frustrating because I thought that my criticism on that video, which like the title maybe doesn't reflect how critical I was pretty sufficient. But I don't know how I can win in the situation. But oh well.
Between the 101 and the 5, entourage effect. Yes, indeed, that's what it was. Otto Dix. I have a Dennis Miller doll. It's still in the box. Special bonus if it's signed by Sam Seder. Wow, pretty good. Nice. Timothy, I didn't realize I did that. Good job yesterday on PDB. The live chat was the single worst thing I'd ever seen. You got called a cuck more times than either of those guys said taxes in the whole live stream.
How about a soy boy?
I would hope so. Rudy Dinosaur, how many calls will it take for an all calls Wednesday for the Marion Williamson person to get through again?
Oh, yes. She I didn't realize she called on Tuesday, but we spoke yesterday too.
Oh, Lux. One thing missed in the TikTok banning is actually more about trans queer kids and the social contagion myth. As you see in the Utah bill, making social media companies require parents' permission, one of the only non-trans abortion bills being signed. Interesting. Good point. On the PBD podcast, the effective thing you said was pointing out the leaded gasoline theory of crime. Yeah, I tried to get a lot of my wheelhouses in there. T-Spua, I feel like the YouTube shorts sometimes, but its algorithm definitely has right lean. Always Joe Rogan or Matt Walsh, no matter how many times I dislike and say I don't show anymore. I think we need to produce more. Maybe that's what it is. All right, 5 more. Custodial artist. Wait, I've been paying to a leftist show. Left is best. Aaron is not cool. Sam, those dudes loved you. I think it must have been refreshing to have someone there who knew their stuff, present great counterpoints, could take a joke and make them all laugh. That guy's laugh is definitely a multimillionaire's laugh. California Uber Ales, enjoyed your appearance on the PBD podcast. Also share your view on leaded gas. Have you ever brought anyone onto your show to expand upon that? We had Kevin Drum on years and years ago when he wrote about it in the Washington Monthly. But I haven't seen any other like writing about it or any other research on it. But if you have it, send an email. The guy to your left on the PBD show was flabbergasted that an Asian guy was speaking Russian when he saw the clip of Xi's interpreter talking to Putin. Yeah. Bavarian fish tacos. If that Belushi joke was any darker, Ben Shapiro would have called the cops. Rodney, from Omaha, Sam, regarding your appearance on that podcast, some of the questions that he was asking you, I think the left should have answers for, such as assigning blame. Who were the actors? Because the financial catastrophe and the delineation of where certain actors are on the left, you including Sam, this will be in my going in my initial report. I'm not 100% sure what you're saying there, but understand that strategically, I had a message I want to get across, which is that we need to talk about reinstituting that Dodd-Frank regulation. These guys, I had just, sometimes you got to make an assessment. If I make subsidiary arguments and talk about who is to blame, and frankly, I don't know which one of those players is more to blame, but they're going to harp on that. And I had a different point I wanted to get across. Just to give you a little insight into how I approached that. All right. 2 more. Kowalski from Nebraska. Howdy, I'm a majority reporter. Watch your podcast interview. I think a good point was made. You need to get an updated headshot. If there's a 706 call, you should take it. They called on Wednesday and respectfully hung up not to drag the show out late. Lastly, I have something big in the works for the show. Left is mysterious.
Ooh.
South Africa did have nuclear weapons, and the white apartheid government built them in secret with the Israelis, but destroyed them before handing power over to the democratically elected government who happened to be black people. Well, Brennan from Kentucky. Oh, wait, we already took your call. One more. Final IM of the week. Pootie Tang case study. That's it. Just the username. Bradley, great job today. Matt, good luck with grand jury.
Oh my gosh.
Emma, see you guys on Monday.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth and the light bar, but finding out won't make me feel any better. Yeah, I know the clock is ticking, but the meds are gonna kick in, and my pilot light shining bright. I get somewhere the choice was made, for the option where you don't get paid, for the road that bends before it finally breaks you. I guess somehow I lost my drive between the 101 and the 5. Do you know how far the detour takes you? Yeah, I know the clock is ticking, but the meds are gonna kick in, and my pilot light shining bright. The months drifted into years, while I shifted in and out of gear, waiting for my moment to happen. I don't know how much longer I can stay in, or how much more I got to pay to play in. I know somehow